You could trademark a brand for smoking accessories for federally legal hemp.
Okay.
Right? Is this hemp?
Yeah.
Or is this hemp? And I mean, if you just ask an enforcement officer by sight,
yeah, how do you tell?
You can't tell.
Did it have a testing kit?
What is the intent of the manufacturer? If I'm making those rolling papers to consume high THC cannabis, that's paraphernalia. Because it's only for legal smoking herbs, anything that's legal, then this is not paraphernalia. Because that's my intent. I want this only to be used for federally lawful purposes.
Welcome to the Robertson Stash. Season 5 is brought to you by WNC CBD. Empowered by Puffco.
All right, man. Well, welcome, Luke. How are you, brother?
I'm good. It's good to be here, Matt.
Yeah, we're sitting down today with Luke Zimmerman, Esquire, cannabis attorney at law.
Can I use my full title?
Yes, why don't you introduce?
Dr. Luke S. Zimmerman, Esquire, LLM ×2.
What is ×2? What is there, two of you?
I have 2 international masters of law.
Whoa, okay. That's a mouthful there.
Yeah, it is.
You fit that all on a business card? I guess.
It looks impressive. Yeah. It takes up space. It really sells it.
Wow. So how much schooling did you have to do to get those letters at the end of your name?
Are we going to count high school, or can we just go with?
Let's just go with after high school, post high school.
4, 7, 8, 9, at least 9 extra years of school.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome, dude. So can you give us a little background on like what you like? What is cannabis law?
Where did I come from? Well, you want to go? I think starting with the origin story, because my relationship with cannabis has shaped my life in, I think, a very interesting way, just because I've seen it from so many different sides. But we'll start with 15-year-old me pulling my first bong load out of a bird feeder that had been converted into a smoking utensil.
Wow. Okay.
That was my first exposure to it.
Who made that?
One of my brother's friends.
Nice.
Yeah. And we were out in the field, and I remember just giggling, and like, I don't remember the first beer I had. I definitely remember the first time I smoked weed.
Wow.
And then that kind of morphed me slowly over time into the cliched stoner of most of my classes. I was very much that guy.
Spreading the good word.
Exactly.
Doing God's work.
Hey, check this out. We don't have to just have alcohol at a tire fire. You could also smoke some reefer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was in Wisconsin. That was during a period of my life.
So you were an advocate for marijuana at an early age.
Yes. It definitely spoke to me from a very early age. And that was during an era where I still hadn't even seen green weed yet. I was in...
What were you smoking on?
Mexican brickweed.
Okay.
Yeah, you're pulling out the seeds, pulling out the stems. Yeah. It's so bone dry.
I remember that.
You're ripping the zigzags while you're trying to roll a joint. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I moved to Madison, Wisconsin. So now I'm in college. And that's when I really started to see green weed for the first time. I went to my first harvest march. What is it? Yeah, where you march down
in Madison.
In Madison,
okay, that's a cool little town, man.
Yeah, so you're familiar with State Street.
Glassroots used to be there, and that little square that's like in the downtown that we were hanging out there.
So the protest march was up State Street around the square, and then we sat on the state Capitol steps and smoked.
Nice.
And I was 20 when I did that. And then the school I was going to at the time didn't offer philosophy as a major. And I wanted to get a philosophy major. And I had 3 people in a week tell me that they could see me living in Eugene, Oregon, which I don't know what a Eugene, Oregon is. Never been to Oregon at the time. And I was like, well, that's really odd. And so in that, I needed to find a new university to go to. I went and looked at Eugene, and I promptly was like,
"Go Ducks!
I'm going to move here. Go Ducks!" You know? And the amount of like hippie psychedelic culture resonated with me so much for what I was doing with my life and where parties I was going to and what that was. And Eugene just was such a good fit. And it was interesting because that also then exposed me to glass pipes and glass culture. That I was there when Operation Pipe Dream went down. I very much remember when that happened. Mm-hmm. Some of the first friends I made, especially one of the first friends I made, was a member of the Eugene Glass Alliance. And then I got to know Raging Family, which Freeman Corbin was part of later on.
Yeah, Freeman.
That Yeah, Eugene really gave me an education in a way where I now jokingly say that was my undergraduate degree in cannabis.
Yeah.
And so I hit a point where, go ahead.
Were you you switched to or Eugene
Yep.
University and you were
Moved
taking
out from Madison.
Okay.
It was like, okay, I can declare a philosophy degree. And I would have been 21 at that time.
Were you studying law?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is all feeding into it.
Okay.
This is the back story.
Okay.
This is the
philosophy you were getting into. Yeah.
And then you find yourself at a tender 23 with a philosophy degree bartending, having a moment where you look around and you're like, as much as the movie Roadhouse is sweet, because Patrick Swayze had a philosophy degree. He mentions that quite clearly. And I had spent my time to being a bouncer. I was working with people who were getting close to 30, and I saw that Eugene was in some ways a black hole of a good time, but time would move past, and I could easily burn 5 years and still be here working in this bar. I was like, I want to do something different. And that was a very interesting time also because I knew some of the people in my friendship circles were getting arrested for cannabis distribution. And I just saw this thing where it's like, oh, something's changing here. And this is a reason to pick something else. You know?
Okay. Was this before Pipe Dreams then?
This is after Pipe Dreams.
Oh, after Pipe Dreams. Okay.
Pipe Dreams, I want to say was in 2001 or 2002.
Okay.
And so I was like, what do I do next? And I was like, I'd always talked about going to law school, and it's a fairly common feeder to go from philosophy into law. It's the normal progression.
Do your credits add up to?
No, it's more just the type of subject matter you're studying is relational. And so I went in and got some career advice and said, hey, I think I want to go to law school. And they said, so are you in your freshman or sophomore year of college? And I was like, oh no, I graduated like a year and a half ago. And they were like, oh, well, what are your grades? And they're like, your grades are abysmal. You're never going to go to law school. And I remember walking out of there feeling so dejected. And this is one of the things that I feel very fortunate about in my life. I have parents who are immensely supportive. You know, I don't have a perfect family by any stretch, but my family, we are really good at loving each other, and we're really good at supporting each other. And I remember calling my folks and told my mom, well, they said, it's a no-go. You know, I'm never going to do this. And she's like, one person told you you're not going to do it, and you're backing down already? That's not normally who you are. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And she's like, take the entry, because there's the LSTAT. And the LSTAT is the entrance exam for law school. Basically, you get a score, and if you're in different brackets, that kind of qualifies what type of law school you can go to.
Okay.
So I took the test, did above average slightly, and did well enough that a very low-tier law school offered me some scholarships. And I had met a friend of mine named Marco around 2002 when I studied in Italy. I studied Italian language in Perugia. I'd met Marco, and I knew Marco was in law school. So I reached out to him and said, hey, listen, I got accepted to this one law school. Where are you going to law school? What do you know about it? He's like, actually, I go to that law school.
No way.
And if you move down to San Diego, we can be living in Rome in the next 6 months studying at the Vatican. And so I was like, peace out, Eugene.
Yeah.
And Eugene was an interesting place for me because other glass associated things, like Tristan Hodgins and I used to go to the same Wednesday jam band dance event and knew a bunch of the same musicians. I snowboarded with Buck back in the day when we were in our early 20s, that he went to high school with a number of people that I had become friends with. Yeah. So it was like, and they were all, I remember Buck pulling out like a little dish kind of with like a little spoon and just being like, he's like, I made this. I'm so proud of it. And just
that's wild.
Yeah. And I think that is really funny, just that I've had these little snippets throughout my life of meeting people in this. So I moved down to San Diego, and I take a step back from my hippie ways of Eugene. And law school was hard.
Yeah.
Law school was a moment where having had to have the sit down where they're like, listen, we don't know if this is for you.
Really?
When I was like, but I live by the ocean for the first time in my life. And like the bar scene here is great. And it really forced me to reevaluate what being a student was. And it showed me I didn't really know how to be a great student at that time. But by the end of 3 years, I'd figured it out. I still felt fairly clueless about what I was doing. I just knew that this was going to be not bartending. And I got exposed a little bit to intellectual property. And that fascinated me. And that, as you know, is what I do today. But getting that the idea that there's a legal structure to own intangible assets, fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, where you're like, okay, so we came up with rules about things that you can't touch, but they have power value and you can own them. And then to understand what these things are oftentimes for corporations like the trademark. That's oftentimes one of the most valuable things, or a trade secret for Coca-Cola. How do you make the sugar water?
Yeah.
That's where all the value is. And so
so that's much different than a patent, right?
Yeah.
Like
okay. We're going to get into it.
Okay.
I
cool.
don't work with patents, but
you don't work.
I will get, after we get more into what I do as opposed to who I am, I'll give you an entire spiel about how they're a little bit different, a little bit the same.
Because with glass, you could patent like the shape or function, I guess. But let's get into that. Well, let's finish up.
Oh, yeah. And actually, we could probably the way to do that exercise is to walk through how each type of intellectual property could apply to a glass pipe.
That sounds great.
I think that's a great.
Let's do that.
So, being in San Diego, doing these classes, getting exposed to the world of law for the first time. Realizing that lawyers, for the most part, are kind of miserable people oftentimes. There's also a lot of personality types that I am more collaborative than being competitive. That's just not, I'm much more let's get resolution than I need to win.
Mm-hmm.
And being around a lot of people who wanted to win all the time, I found
is that like the lawyer mentality?
A lot of people, especially if you end up in litigation, oftentimes that's like the background archetype. Still was kind of the cliched stoner from my law school classes.
Yeah.
Only met a few other people who were that passionate about cannabis, but for the most part, people were into drinking. So the weed stuff was there, but it was so much different than Eugene. And this was so far before legalization that there was no discussion about cannabis law when I was in school. Like you would have sounded crazy to a certain extent, or it would have been summed up as, oh, you're talking about medical marijuana and you're probably a criminal defense attorney. So they're like, it was
hemp, CBD, that stuff wasn't really,
it wasn't even an option because hemp wasn't legal until 2018.
Oh,
and we're talking, this is still 2009.
Okay.
So I graduate, I try to take the bar. I fail.
Oh no.
Try to take the bar. I fail. Try to take the bar. I fail.
Third time.
Try to take the bar. I fail.
Oh no.
Try to take the bar and I pass. My
fifth time's a charm.
2.5 years of my life. And with that, I will say quite clearly, I know oftentimes I am not the smartest person in a room, but I'm diligent
and resilient
in a way. You knock me down, I get back up. I'll figure it. If I want it that bad, I'll figure it out. And after you get over that hump, I've met plenty of attorneys who pass the bar on their first time who are terrible at what they do. And when there's opposition, seeing that, questioning themselves of like, oh, but I'm supposed to be the golden child. I'm supposed to have this figured out. So, but for taking that much time.
So is that like a record, taking the bar test 5 times?
Oh,
or no, people you keep going until you get it.
Well, and that's,
or is there,
that I know some
can you
people
stroke
have
out?
taken up to 8 or 9 times. And there's one person who I think famously they've taken it something like 20 times.
Okay. So there's no limit.
There's no limit.
You can just keep
need to
going.
pass,
Okay.
right? And then it's, that shame component that sometimes is forced towards you, like, oh, it took you that much, which I think is kind of ridiculous. I mean, for the thing that I realized by the last 2 times I took it was the initial prep program I took. It just didn't work with the way that I think and the way I do memorization.
Okay.
Especially for having ADHD really badly. That was at that time not treated. Trying to do memorization of large volume was so hard for me. And the writing style that they had put forth, it wasn't clear. And then the last 2 times I used a private tutor, and the second to last time, the time before I passed, I missed it by 4 points, which was the equivalent of 2 multiple choice questions.
Wow.
And so I went from like, I don't know what I'm doing to, oh, I just didn't understand the format of how we're doing this. Oh yeah, this is doable. And But during that time, I had, a variety of very underimpressive internships. But I realized, most of my cohort at this point is 2 years into practice, a year and a half into practice, depending if people had to take it multiple times. And I was like, oh shit, I'm so far behind. I got to do something different. And I also had hedged my bets where I was like, if I don't pass on this 5th time, you can go to other states and take it. And other state bars are easier. California at that time was widely regarded as the hardest bar in the nation. It was 3 days of testing, 18 hours of testing.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Is it the same test you took 5 times, or they switch it up?
They switch the subject matter, switch the questions.
Oh, really?
So it's like the best you can do. And I think there's 14 subjects that you have to memorize everything for.
Wow.
And they might just ask you this little piece of this one subject. And if you hadn't studied that well, you're going to miss that entire essay question. So to hedge my bets, I was like, well, you know what? If I don't pass this, either I'm going to go to a different state and I'm going to take it, or I love learning. One of the things my parents really instilled in me is to be a lifelong learner. And that I am so grateful for, because that has just served me.
That's good. Immensely. That's a good tip.
I applied for my first master's of law in Amsterdam and got accepted, then found out I passed the bar. I was like, okay, do I stay here and start my legal career? Or do I immediately suspended my license and moved to Europe?
Really?
During that time too, though, there was a thing that happened. I was vagabonding up and down the West Coast. So I was in San Diego. I saw that there was a door closing on my time in San Diego. My brother lived in Portland. I still had all these ties to Eugene. So I was doing these road trips up and down the I-5 corridor. And I stopped at a music festival called Regeneration, which was a very wild music festival. It was wild enough that there was enough liability that they were not able to do it multiple times.
Wow.
But at that event,
where was that?
It was in Oregon, and I want to say it was by Eugene.
Okay.
But no, it was at Horning's Hideout. It was at a Horning's Hideout, which is just outside of Portland.
Okay.
And it's famous for disc golf. It's also, I've been to some weddings out there. They have peacocks. So there was like, it's 4 a.m. and you're, it's like someone having a good time.
So what happened at this rejuvenation?
So at this, I met also more interesting people. I met more glassblowers. I actually met Bertoni there.
No way.
I met Darby and Leela for the first time. I met Laceface. And I also met an artist that I went on to have a relationship with for 2 years. And that artist made such an impression on my life that it totally really changed my direction. So I was about to go to Europe and move there for a year, started this relationship. Was like, okay, this is important. This is important. I'm moving over here to do this. And so I go to Europe and I'm there and I'm immersed. I'm one of 2 U.S. students in 4 different legal tracks. So it is a very cosmopolitan, people from around the world. It was such a cool learning experience.
I would imagine.
I lived up in the Jordan for part of it. I lived out by the zoo, by the Artis. And where the law school was is like at the southern part of the red light district in Central. So like walking to school every day was just this very interesting experience.
Yeah.
Also, when we talked about international labor laws and we talked about human trafficking and human slavery, having the professor be like, 2 blocks from here are examples of some people who are doing essentially human slavery. And I was like, whoa, that's really profound. But so as I said, my undergraduate degree in cannabis was in Eugene. My graduate degree in cannabis was living in Amsterdam for a year. I would go into shops and I was probably the most annoying person because I'd like, oh, can I smell that? Can I look at that? Oh, you have 3 different types of like caramello hash. Let me look at that. So I just got to see such a wide variety of cultivars, traditional hashes. I was there at a time where extracts were just becoming a thing.
Really?
Yeah,
is that where we met? Like,
that's where we met.
Yeah.
And that is
so that's why you were out there.
I was out there studying.
Okay.
Right. Do you remember who the rapper was who played at that event?
Oh,
because
I feel like I knew him at the time. Like maybe I
sounded like an old. I ended up in a situation where at that time I was 32 and I had arrogantly thought like, oh, I'm just going to get an apartment and I'm going to do this thing. Amsterdam has a worse housing market than San Francisco or New York, or it's impossible. The places that I found where they're like, oh, you're a lawyer, this is great, your law firm or whatever company you're working for, they must be paying for you to be here. Here's an apartment for 3,200 euro a month. And I was like, that's not at all what I budgeted for. Also, I'm a student. And they're like, oh, we don't rent to students. Yeah. I was like, okay. So I ended up in the dorms.
Real estate's tight there. Yeah.
Super tight. Yeah. And I'm the dude equivalent in the dorms. I'm smoking joints. I'm here for a year. I'm around a lot of like undergraduate students who are only there for about 6 months. And
they come and go. You're always there.
I'm there. Right. I'm in a bathrobe. I'm 8 years older than my RA. But they were talking about going to see, I want to say it, B.O.B. It was B.O.B.
B.O.B.
The rapper, right. Because I kept saying, like, who's Bob? And they're like, how old are you? Like, I don't know. Like, is that like, are we having an elderly thing right now? And they're like, yeah, it's B.O.B. It's not Bob.
So that's who was playing night?
That was who was playing.
When we magically met?
Yes. Yeah. And so how we met you is walking the floor. There weren't really, I remember there's one other glass. Was it Hitman? I think it was Hitman.
Maybe Hitman was there, yeah.
Hitman was there. But other than that, you were the only other glass vendor, as I recall.
Yeah, I didn't walk around too much.
Right. I talked to you.
Yeah, I was at the booth.
Yeah, and we were talking about, I started spitting some names of people that I knew, and you're like, oh, I'm aware of them, but I'm up in Canada. Like, I'm doing my own thing in Canada right now. You had talked about, I think you at that time had made a piece for Snoop Dogg already.
Through a friend,
You had started getting some attention. But we had this interaction, and we weren't with each other when it happened, but...
Well, yeah, then what happened? I remember that.
The only time that this has happened in the history of the High Times Cups. And it was all because they moved the venue.
Wow.
And I remember this so clearly because it was already kind of surreal for being at this weed party. I think that was my first official cannabis event.
That was my first official one too.
And so walking in and you see some police officers and it was like, oh, this is weird. And then it was like, oh no, that's normal. Yeah. They're just here to keep the peace and they're just doing this thing. But then like on the second day, I believe.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, so there's 2 police officers. And then they look over and there's like, oh, there's 3 over there. And then look over and it's like 5 just walked in.
Yeah.
And having this moment like, oh shit, this is getting raided.
Yeah. And then one walked in front of every booth and then they said, hold on. And they're going to put it on the announcement. And it was like under the Dutch and Opium Act or something. Something like that. And then they watched you and you couldn't like do anything. And then it got raided. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go. And it was like the world's largest forced smokeout because if they could put more than 5 grams on you, you'd go to jail or get in trouble. So people were just smoking everything they got, going green at the front door.
What I noticed, a big separation from the Dutch and the U.S. people who were visiting, because U.S. people got very uncomfortable and started throwing things away. And I actually bought this grinder years later. It's like the full hand grinder like this. Watching a Dutch dude go around and pick up baggies and then just grind the weed and kept rolling joints and smoking them and having the police come up and they'd be like, would you put that out? Could you please put this out? And he was like, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, that is so antithetical because in the United States, obviously you'd be on the ground. It would be, but when I was walking out, I had a glass pipe that was made for me and it was very ornate and it was a Sherlock and it was a female police officer, and she looks at it, and she's like, clearly intrigued. She's like, where do you put the drugs?
Oh, really?
And I was like, I put cannabis here. She's like, okay, here you go.
No way.
But I was like, that's never going to happen to me again.
Yeah.
Like also, because it was still so far before legalization. It was just like, you don't have pipes handed back to you. Those things get smashed, you know?
I remember that people were going green at the doors when you had to get searched on your way out. Oh, yeah. There was like garbage piles of weed and people were just flipping garbage cans over, rolling up big joints. And
there is some Southern dude wearing overalls who I'd chatted with earlier in the event. And then I bumped into him by the Dom later on that night. He was so blotto. And I was like, whoa, man, like, what did you get into? And he's like, all 6 grams of hash that I had on me, I just ate and smoked. I was just like, all right.
Wow.
You are having a night.
You're in it for a while. Yeah.
You're going to sleep well. So
that was,
that's
when we met the first time.
That is where we met.
Yeah.
And that
never
was
forget.
12 years ago now.
Was it 12 years ago?
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Actually,
might be more than that.
I think it's
2013.
13.
It's probably 2011 or 12. I don't know.
I would say 11.
We'll have to look that up. And
we'll have to look. But yeah, I think it would be about, it's 12 or 13 years, which is wild. Wild to think about. Especially
time is going by so fast.
Plenty of antics in between there.
Oh, yeah.
But so.
Yeah, you've helped me get out of a lot of wild situations over the years.
It pays to know a lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
Especially one you can trust. So Amsterdam, for me, my master's thesis was on the harmonization of intellectual property standards through the TRIPS agreement of the WTO, which is a mouthful. But really, it is the intersection of all these international treaties that allow for harmonization, which means multiple countries are following essentially the same body of law and legal standards, so it facilitates trade. So if I register a trademark in the United States, it's fairly equivocal to what the Italians do. So it just streamlines the ability to.
But you have to do it in each country, right?
Yes, jurisdictionally based. Yes, the United States is a little bit wonky in that we also have state registrations, but most other countries, it's just at the federal level.
Is there no world patent?
There is no world patent. There is registration with the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, that's going to come into play in a little bit.
Okay.
So writing this master's thesis was amazing because I got to really delve into what intellectual property was in a way that it was applied, because we're talking about it through the lens of trade, because my master's degree was focused on trade and investment law, international. And by seeing what different countries were doing, that gave me a pretty good taste of intellectual property. I still don't have it from practicing sense, but I now have a refined, deeper understanding of what it is, also now from an international perspective, right? So I moved back to the States, and I moved with my girlfriend, who, of the time, artist. She was living in Seattle, and I was only licensed in California. So moving to Seattle, it just didn't work. Like trying to find a job, I would have had to take another bar.
Really?
Yeah, that it was like, okay, can't do this.
So if you're a lawyer and you want to move to another state, you got to take that state's bar exam to get your legal license?
Generally, or you figure out the ways that you can kind of work the system, which is essentially what I've done to a certain extent. There are certain areas of law that fell under federal jurisdiction, and you can practice those generally anywhere because you're not offending the state, because it's not state law. Otherwise, if you want to do like contracts or criminal law or civil law, every state that you're practicing and or hold yourself out to, I want to get clients in, you have to be bar certified. So that is immensely restrictive in so many ways where you can't just easily move.
Do you give up your previous bar, or can you keep acquiring them?
You can keep acquiring them.
So is there lawyers that go and have multiple so they can cover?
What is interesting with that, though, is all of them require bar fees. So the more you stack, the more your annual obligation is to all these different organizations. And it's not like you're picking one to be compliant with, where my insurance standards in California might be vastly different than insurance standards in Oregon. So if you stack a bunch of these, you have to be on top of what all of those things are if you really want it not to face a malpractice suit. Also, practically, if you're going to go that direction, oftentimes people just join law firms where you're like, okay, somebody from the law firm is licensed there, and we'll just collaborate on the different projects that are relevant.
Oh, so the legal one puts their name on the paperwork, and they can still collaborate.
And they're like, okay, we can sign off on it, even
that
though
seems
you
like
did the work.
the way to do it.
Or for once you do collect them, the ones that are really popular are you see California, New York, Florida, states that have like high return potentially on clients, high population density, high demand for client. and usually have cities where your pricing that you can do in those cities are much better than you could in other medium-sized cities around the nation. So for me, do you know the Vocab Company? Vocab Company.
No.
Hip hop group out of San Diego. Good friends.
Okay.
They're wonderful people.
Just get him on the pod.
Yeah, there you go.
Shout out Vocab.
Berkey, Robbie, hey, get on the pod. But I was at a concert of theirs in Seattle, and Berkey was like, well, if it's a hard go for you here in Seattle, why don't you move back to San Diego? You know, you have all the colleagues there. And I was like, I'm trying to find a place to live, you know. And he's like, well, I've got a back house. I can be your landlord. And I was like, well, I can only do this if we can turn the lower part into an art studio, and that would require cutting a hole in a wall. And he's like, I don't fucking care. Just come down. So moved down, and this is where the big change of like me figuring out next steps were. And it was by getting my first vanilla legal gig, which I got
Vanilla legal?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
That means traditional law.
Okay.
And I got to put my diplomas up for the first time. I got to put on my spiffy suit and go into the office, and I hated it. I was soul crushed in many ways. Like, I didn't get the best mentoring. One of my friends helped me get the gig. He was one of the partners. But
what was the gig? Was it a job at a law firm?
A job at a law firm,
okay.
A small law firm. But I didn't really get a ton of mentoring. And what I got exposed to for the most part was, I was like, I don't think I like this. Like, did I spend all this time, energy, money, failing all these times, retaking these things just to end up in this situation where I remember working on some litigation where there was a trespass issue where someone in their backyard had these trees that were prone to like toppling over, and their neighbor had a landscaper who went onto his property and cut down the trees. And it's this dispute about, these trees. But really, these two people hated each other. They were not great neighbors for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being like, that's what I do now? That's what this, like, it's just like.
Being around that all day.
And being like, no, you owe us this much money. No, you owe us this much. And I was like, that does not speak to
How long did it take you working there to realize that?
I would say I had an aha probably 3 to 4 months in, where I started to finally like get my legs underneath me a little bit. And then I was just like, oh, this is not it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was coming home, and girlfriend was making these art pieces, and her craft was developing, and the smile on her face of like, this is what I made today. This is what I'm working on today. And I was like, holy shit, you're so fulfilled. Like, you are. Yeah,
you got to witness that up close and
seeing that. And that, so we'll flash forward. I only had moved back there for probably about 9 months. Relationship is now ended. And I find out that there is some questionable behavior going on at the law firm that results in the law firm going under within a month.
Whoa.
Yeah. Where I luckily skirted that whole issue. But it left me at this point where.
Did you get out before that, or did they?
I did. I actually, and I was the one who called out what was going on, it was interesting because I was asked to sign something, and I said, I'm so new to this that this doesn't look right to me, but also I've never done this before. And within a short amount of time, all of my files got pulled, and some of the partners were like, we have to have a big conversation about what's going on here. And that also, with the writing on the wall was just, and I was going through a breakup where I'm just like, I don't know what is going on in my life. Mm-hmm. I just remember laying on my kitchen floor crying and just having this like existential, like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, San Diego honestly is done for me. It doesn't feel like it's a good fit anymore. And Oregon, maybe that's the call. Maybe San Francisco. So I started doing these road trips again. And on one of my road trips, I stop in Oakland, and I'm having brunch with a friend, and we're right by Oaksterdam University.
What is that exactly?
Oaksterdam is the first educational institution in the United States, arguably in the world, that focused on a cannabis-focused curriculum. And it's an unaccredited school, But the work that it was doing was so much activism and trying to just normalize what is cannabis. I mean, for people who had no exposure to it before, what is this thing, you know? And so they've had students from around the world. It's really impressive. But
do you get like a degree or something?
you get a certificate.
Certificate, yeah.
I mean, it's still an unaccredited,
and whether
not recognized by a state or a state university.
What do you do with that? Like go to work at dispensary,
and I think work at dispensaries, and to a certain extent, that certificate had a lot more value back in the day because now there's traditional universities that'll offer you an undergraduate degree in cannabis studies.
Is there?
So, oh yeah, and I mean, be it agricultural, be it the business side, but the work that Oaksterdam has done really blazed a path for normalizing it, and their activism work. They've trained activists around the world for cannabis activism.
Cool. So they were the first.
So I went in there, and because my friend was like, "Hey, you know, weed head buddy, what do you know about that?" I'm like, "Oh, I saw it on CNN. I don't really know much." And I went in, and a month later, I was taking classes there, and I got exposed to the first attorneys who were cannabis-focused attorneys. And I had this moment where I was like, "No one ever told me I could do that with my bar license. Like, what do you mean?" It was that.
Well, what were they doing with like
and
these?
It was
were they fighting
criminal defense attorneys, and then there was a handful of corporate attorneys, because in the Bay Area, for the history of cannabis, the first dispensaries in the United States, for the most part, came out of
anywhere you want to just swing it around.
Came out of the Castro district in San Francisco, right? And also for people who don't know cannabis history, we wouldn't have medical cannabis, let alone adult use or recreational cannabis, without the AIDS epidemic. People don't know that.
What do you mean?
The normalization of medical cannabis, AIDS rocked the gay community in San Francisco in such a way that people were dying horrible deaths. And the suffering that they were enduring allowed for the opportunity to put forth, hey, maybe cannabis could be used as a medicine to alleviate some of the suffering.
Okay.
And it got championed and supported, and it did alleviate suffering. There's a Johnny Appleseed type character for the industry that many people haven't heard of, named Brownie Mary. And Brownie Mary is a gem. Look her up. She, I want to say in her 70s, would go into hospitals and give terminally ill gay men who oftentimes were not getting any support, weren't necessarily getting a lot of visitors, give them infused brownies. And she kept getting busted. And she just told the judge, she's like, "Sentence me. What are you going to do? I'm going to go do it again because I know I'm right."
Oh.
And that to me, I love that story. I think that
did she get sentenced?
She got a lot of community service, but also sentencing like a 78-year-old lady for like giving away. She's not selling it.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, what is the real crime here? You know? And so for meeting attorneys who were working in that area, and were part of that history, it just blew me away. I was like, holy shit. And as my classes were winding down, I said, you know, who does the intellectual property work for this? I said, that doesn't exist. And I was like, what do you mean that doesn't exist? And they're like, there's no one doing that. No one's talking about that. And I was like, oh my God, like, I am not a genius, but I can tell you that this is going to be really important. And having intellectual property is interesting because it's not a mandatory class in a legal education. So there's plenty of attorneys who it's just this esoteric thing for them. They're like, really? I don't really know what this is. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? Like, very much thinking about from the relationship with the artist of like, pick your passion, take a risk, do something where you're like, okay, I actually care about this.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm gonna be one of the first people to do this. And I planted my flag and started writing articles. I formed my law firm, started writing articles, found some attorneys who had at least 10 to 15 more years of experience than I did, who were generously, I consider them mentors, and now they're friends, and I've lectured on panels with them and I've written articles with them. But at that time I was so green and just being like, oh, well, how do I do this? Like, how do I work with the
in intellectual property fields?
Intellectual property. Okay. And some of them had worked with High Times. Some of them had worked with, what are some really old OG? We're talking like
Skunk Magazine.
Skunk Magazine. Yeah, actually, David represented them. Dope magazine, although I ended up having a hand in some of that, mainly writing articles for them later on. But so I got to meet these people who were generous enough that they're like, hey, we're all in this together. And what I lacked in experience, I made up for from my undergraduate degree in cannabis and my graduate degree in cannabis.
Eugene and Amsterdam.
I was at the first ever continuing legal education seminar for cannabis intellectual property in Seattle.
Oh.
And there was probably 30-ish of us at it. And the questions being asked were varied in range of experience and curiosity to like, I don't know anything about this, to, hey, what's this weird technical question? How does it apply? And I just remember one of the questions I asked when we were talking about copyright law. And I said, so if there was a sculpture of a neon yellow ninja, but it also functioned as a bong, could that get copyright protection? And they were like, yeah, probably if it's artistic enough, but like, why is that important? And it was, no one in that room knew anything about the glass culture. And it was just this moment where I was like, oh man,
I'm on to something here.
Right. Like, and that, I mean, I'll use the language of what I learned for international trade, that competitive advantage that I had because of my experience of Eugene, of being immersed in this culture was like, oh, I just see these things that, once again, not a genius, but I see that this is going to fill in. These are places where things are going to develop. Having the patent attorney, they found a patent attorney who clearly had no weed background and was just very, I don't even know if he liked the subject matter. But at one point he was like, well, yeah, you could get a patent registration for hash manufacturing if you had a unique method. And like only a few people looked around the room like, holy shit, like that could be solid gold. Like,
are people, so you can do that?
Oh yeah, you can do that.
Wow.
And that, it's been done actually. And there's been lawsuits over it, especially for doing extraction of distillate like that. The claiming that method was owned by it. There's been cases on this.
Wow.
But this is such a juvenile time. This was so I feel very fortunate. I was definitely not at the 1.0 level, but I was at the 1.5 or the 2.0 level. And I've stuck with it since. So like I've made a name for myself now, even internationally. I'm now an internationally published author. So I feel fortunate because if I would have picked a different track, like something more vanilla, right? How many criminal defense attorneys are there in a town? How many personal injury attorneys are there in a town? How many, it was this moment.
How many billboards are in that town?
Exactly.
And that'll be about the number.
That'll help you. I remember going to my first year of having my business. I went to a wedding in New Jersey of one of my friends from law school, and it seemed like 25 to 50% of the people in attendance were all lawyers. And I remember being like, oh yeah, I just launched my own law firm. They're like, that's great. What are you doing? And I was like, well, I'm launching a practice in cannabis intellectual property. And they're like, oh, cool, you're a criminal defense attorney. And I was like, no, I'm a purely a transactional business attorney for intellectual property. And they're like,
over their heads.
What do you, that's not a thing. What do you mean? And I mean, it took so long for the East Coast to get exposed to that. It still took probably another 4 years before that even started to cross that. But so then my second year, and this is where life just started to shine of like me picking this, right? I went back to Amsterdam. I founded their intellectual property section. I've been teaching there now.
Founded it. Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I wrote the curriculum from the ground up.
Wow.
Yeah. Really cool.
That's
amazing.
amazing.
I have been able to, I've taught probably over 1,000 students who are not lawyer focused about the importance of intellectual property and try to make it more accessible instead of being an ivory tower. That year, I also had the thing that I'm probably the most proud to ever have happened because of my bar card occur, where I was smoking a joint, reading the Huffington Post. Obama administration was coming to an end, and Obama put out a blast that said, if there are federal inmates serving a life sentence for non-violent drug offenses, I will consider commutation and clemency for those inmates. And the article said there's probably about 30 to 40,000 applicants we're going to see. And because we're shorthanded, we're going to be able to maybe service 3,000 of those. If you have a bar card, please consider volunteering.
Wow.
This is not at all in the wheelhouse of anything I'm trying to learn or do. But I heard that, and one of the things I really am confident with myself about is intuition. And if I hear that little voice that's like, hey, I'm curious about that, I try to always follow that up. Those have always made my world bigger if I do that. And in a very...
It's like your intuition,
totally.
Following your gut.
And it is and it's genuine. It's something that you can lean into and spend time instead of feeling like, oh, I'm doing someone else's homework.
Yeah.
But so I volunteered for that. And I told
What
myself...
were you doing? Like you were just
reviewing,
getting people's names?
No. You get a federal inmate's file. This is what the story is. Do they qualify for the standard? That's the initial. If they qualify for the standard, start writing the motions to see if the federal government will grant a commutation or clemency. And I told myself initially, I was like, I'm going to do 3 of these. I got time because my business is just getting started. I was only able to do 1. It took a lot of time. And I remember reading the case file. This guy got hosed so freaking hard. His lawyer failed him, gave him misinformation. He tried to get an appeal on the basis of the misinformation, but because some of the files had been lost in a flood, the state was like, oh yeah, it was bad, but it's not that bad. And I even talked with his old attorney on the phone, and I said, listen, I'm working on this case. I know you represented him in his initial issue where he could have had a plea bargain, but you failed to communicate that to him. So he ended up with 3 strikes and a life sentence.
Oh my God.
And having this guy go,
for weed?
No.
Oh.
This was for a conspiracy to manufacture methamphetamine.
Oh.
They never even got to the point where they had a place to cook. It had all just been planning. And my guy's interaction by his claim was, I helped negotiate a lease agreement because I spoke Spanish. And that was the amount, the totality.
He's getting life.
And
That's crazy.
He had 2 cocaine priors.
Okay.
But if he would have pled, if he would have been told he had an option to plead, his other co-conspirators, they did 10 to 12 years. And in his 13th year, his brother was drinking in a bar with one of the co-conspirators. The co-conspirator was like, I never understood why your brother just didn't take the plea. It's like, he never had one. It's like, oh yeah, no, all of us got offered him. It's like, no, that was never communicated to him. He had to file a Freedom of Information Act motion. So that's basically, there are some government documents that are sealed, but by request, you can ask the government to share them. It's at their discretion. Maybe they have to redact something.
So they don't have to?
They don't have to.
Oh, wow. So they were really trying to fuck this guy over.
Well, it
keep him in the prison.
It wasn't him as an individual. That's just how the system is.
Oh.
Yeah. So he filed a Freedom of Information Act, had it shown. He had a plea bargain offered to him that was never communicated to him.
Oh, wow.
And so that is where...
How many years ago? How many years did he spend in prison?
He was already 13 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Find out that he would have been out, too. That's the rub.
Yeah.
And so I'm talking to this attorney, and I'm like, yeah, you didn't tell him that he had this option. And he's like, well, I was so used to working in state criminal court, and I didn't really realize that federal criminal procedure was so vastly different. And that's one I still feel bad about. And I'm like, you feel bad, and this guy is, as of right now, gonna die in prison. That's fucked. Mm-hmm. That is fucked. Also, one of the reasons why I would never want to go into criminal law, because the magnitude of what you're working with.
Yeah, you got to disassociate.
Too much. But so I work on the filings, and I can take credit for the hard work I did, but I had so much guidance and support from federal defenders. There was a whole nonprofit organization set up to run this program. And through doing this, I was able to get him a commutation. And a commutation means you will get released, but you still have some time left to serve. So it's you won't die here, theoretically, as long as you serve the rest of your time. Which the surrealness, I will forever remember this, of being contacted by the Department of Justice. And they're like, listen, your guy is one of the people who's had this granted. In total of that entire program, about 800 did. So this is...
Out of 30,000, you said?
We'll say, yeah, at least 3,000 that got reviewed.
Okay.
When I tell this to federal criminal public defense attorneys, they're like, you hit a grand slam at the World Series these things just don't fucking happen.
Wow.
And so, but I got the call from the Department of Justice, and they said, we don't put this on social media yet, but we're going to have you on a phone call with the warden of the prison that he's in. And then we're going to get you on the phone with him. You get to tell him. And that was, we've never spoken on the phone. We've only communicated through email.
Wow.
And so getting him on the phone and just being able to say, hey man, and it's like midway through it, we're both crying. It's just like, oh my God, this is so powerful. But it was like, but you're still going to be here for, I think it was 6 years. And it was like, okay.
Holy shit.
But just so you know, it's not hanging out over your head anymore. Like there is a light. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
But all of his friends got out earlier than him?
Yeah, no.
That did the same shit?
Right, exactly. But I mean, you tell a man.
If he's on a life death sentence.
Who's like, you're going to die in here. Hey, you know what? You don't have to die in here anymore. You just have to do 6 more.
Yeah.
Changes the perspective pretty quickly.
I bet.
Which is interesting. There's a callback to that a little bit later in the story too. That is the most proud thing I've ever done with Bar Card. It showed me the power of what being an attorney is, because all I did was write some papers, right? And then all of a sudden, this guy
changed someone's life.
Gets to go home. And other than that, it was he had only known his grandchildren wearing his orange jumpsuit, and to be like,
sad.
It's so sad, and that. There is a reality of the war on drugs that has disrupted so many families in this country in a disproportionate way, where a lot of these people, maybe they don't need to be there anymore. Maybe time was served. Maybe you don't have to give your life because you were involved with something, especially without any violence. To me, I have a serious issue with that for how the judicial system and the penalizing of people for crime. I understand.
Well, what is that about? Is that about free labor?
Some would argue
cheap labor.
I mean, the continuation of
the prison system privatizing.
Modern day Jim Crow, having cheap labor, a way to still disenfranchise people of color, break up communities. And I mean, I'm of the mindset that I think there is a reason why the federal government just will not give up the Schedule I status of cannabis, is because you can use it to invade people's lives so easily.
What do you mean?
Oh, probable cause and smell. Okay. Hey, we're going to get in your life. And as soon as a federal agent gets into your life and starts scraping, the federal government has like a 95% conviction rate for crime. So if they start looking into your life, you can it's like, you're going to probably do time.
Are they trying to change the scheduling of marijuana, or?
They are. And it was hotly discussed during the tail end of the last administration, with an actual suit going on with the DEA, asking the DEA to reaffirm why cannabis is still a Schedule I narcotic. And the DEA kept dragging their feet. They wouldn't show up with the evidence to support their arguments. And then lo and behold, the election happens and the DEA responds to the judge, hey, we have a new administration and we have no idea what they want to do with this. So can we just have a timeout? And everything just stalled. And from the last I heard, I was at a conference probably about 2 months ago with an attorney who was working on that case. And she said, we're back to just focusing on activism right now. We're not going to see a legislative change from what we were doing.
That's federally.
Federally, right.
Okay.
Which when we'll get into this also about the immense confusion of hemp, marijuana, cannabis, what word you want to use, what law goes to it. THCA as a form of hemp.
Yeah.
So I get to do this case. I'm very proud of it. This is amazing. This is one of those things where, also for telling people that it was my second year of practice, people are like, how, why, what? And it was because I had my own thing. I picked my own way. I didn't have to ask a law firm permission to do the work. I just was intuitively doing things that I thought were important, which then in the third year, the California Department of Food and Agriculture started talking about an appellation of origin project for cannabis. And we would be still probably 2 years out from legalizing cannabis in California. We're now, Colorado's legalized, Washington's legalized, California's on deck. And for me, because I was licensed in California, that was the focus where I was practicing. there was this buildup to it, like all this planning, all this like
for you.
Oh, for me and my clients.
You were expecting it.
Where it's like, okay, we don't fully know how this is going to shake out, but what will this be? But so one of the standards that was being discussed is appellations. Do you know what that word means?
No, appellations?
Yeah, an appellation. Sounds like the mountain range.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
It is a subset of geographic indication. And geographic indication is a type of intellectual property that Idaho potatoes. If it's grown in Idaho, that potato at market might fetch a higher dollar value because it's certified to be an Idaho potato opposed to a Washington potato, which they have, but Idaho is, or Florida oranges.
Yeah.
The United States doesn't traditionally use these as much. Old world European countries use them vastly more. United States, for the most part, doesn't have an appellation program. We just have a geographic indication program, which is technically a subset of trademarks. Whereas there is an international treaty called the Lisbon Treaty of Appellation Origin that a lot of European countries are signatories to. And that's like Champagne, right?
Okay.
Champagne region of France. Can't call it Champagne unless it's from the Champagne region of France. Italy is still massively fighting with the United States about this one. Parmesan. That cheese that comes in a green can, that is, you tell that to an Italian, that's Parmesan. They're like, no.
Oh, the green can that's not refrigerated?
Right.
Yeah, that's like sawdust.
Right. They're like, no. Parmigiano is from this region. It meets these standards. It's only made in this way. Mm-hmm. And if it's not from
like bourbon too?
Yeah.
Kentucky bourbon.
And
it's got to be made.
That would be a form of geographic indication or product that relies on location for us, that we see increased value if it's made there. We just presume that it's better. Humboldt weed for the longest time, where it's like, okay, if it's from the Emerald Triangle, that's probably nicer than what you're going to see from, say, Temecula.
So can people like capitalize on that?
So the goal, and it was a grassroots movement in California, was because California has such a history in Northern California, especially for producing fine cannabis.
Lots of it, yeah.
They wanted to have a system and a program set up to showcase this, and how do we make it work? So as this was coming together, the California Department of Food and Agriculture was holding these hearings and town hall meetings around the state of California. And I drove from Portland, Oregon to Eureka for a 1 hour and 15-minute meeting. And
Is that like a 4-hour drive?
I
used to drive
more like 9
or
10.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because you got to cut over.
Oh, wow.
Down at Grants Pass and get into the 101 and hug the coast. You're not 5 down and over. But because I did, and I got to meet the directors of the program, shake hands. They heard my accreditation. They heard the first LLM. They were like, hey, we would like you. Would you be interested in participating with helping create this program from nothing? And I was one of 3 attorneys invited to do that. And I am a baby attorney, equivocally. One guy had written a book that included a chapter about the theoretical idea of what this looked like. And the other guy is Richard Mendelson, who is the OG who created or substantially contributed to the United States having a wine AVA system.
A wine AVA?
Yeah, so American Viticulture Association. So we don't have appellations, but we have Napa Valley is an AVA. The Willamette Valley is an AVA. And so it is specifically for the wine industry, and it is to allow for some form of competition with European countries that have appellations. We needed something that could showcase regions in the United States for wine. So this guy, who had written a book on it, also owns a vineyard, fascinating attorney. I'm forever grateful that he was on this, because he was very much the adult in the room numerous times, where he's like, you don't want to do that. Here's problems that I've seen. But I got to participate in that. And the fact that of all these things, like, hey, Luke, you have this added degree, you're at least familiar with the language. And so showing up and participating with that, super cool thing. Unfortunately, the program is not off the ground yet, where it's not accepting applications. And in the current
right now?
Yeah, it was supposed to launch 4 years ago.
Holy shit.
Yeah, COVID hijacked a lot of things, but it also, the language, because we don't have an appellation program in the United States, there was kind of a Frankensteining of law, which is called a sui generis system. It means it just didn't exist before, so it's new unto itself. And some of the standards, we use the ABA standards mixed in with the appellation standards internationally. And it just has this kind of a little bit of a wonky feel. So I don't know if it'll ever launch, but working on it was amazing. It was a super cool, like, hey, we're helping build this thing that could benefit the state of California.
Well, what kind of benefits would this have for people in the industry? So
ideally, and the limitation right now, because cannabis is a Schedule I narcotic, you can't cross state lines with it, right? Geographic.
I didn't know that. I thought you could fly from like Colorado to LA.
No, definitely that is.
I thought they're like you could bring an ounce. I thought I heard.
Still federally illegal.
But they allow it because TSA was like, you can bring an ounce. Like, who knows what are the laws?
Well, lawyers know the laws. That's what.
Okay. They're changing daily.
That is true. That part is true. But it's discretionary enforcement. You know, it's like
So it's up to the TSA.
Right. So I mean, if you were in a TSA in Texas and that went on, I think you're going to get a vastly different response than if you're in Denver. You know,
because it's illegal in Texas.
Right. Well,
right. Or it's like
it's illegal everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know.
Right. And that's the confusing part.
It's confusing.
And especially after you live in a state that has adult use or recreational for long enough, you're like, oh yeah, this is a non-issue.
Yeah. You forget to leave a little bag in you fly to Texas, you end up in jail. You can't go to your kids' graduation.
That is not a unique story. Whereas like I am familiar with a case in Portland, Oregon, where someone flew out, I think he had a 15 pack in his bag. So 15 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Got caught. And he ended up with a no contact order with the state and some community service where they basically were like, don't come back here for at least 3 years. And you have to do community service. No jail time. No. Dude. Where it's like so
I was
different.
Flying to Mexico from Denver and we were smelling pot on the plane. And this guy in front of us was like, yeah, it smells good, right? That's Colorado. And then we're in line going through the customs at Mexico. Right. And you know how it says green or red, random? Yeah. And we could smell this guy's duffel bag from like a mile away, and it went red when he was there. And then people came up to him with his friend, and they just walked them away. And we're like, I don't know if we'll ever see that guy again.
Oh yeah,
but because I don't know what he was doing, thinking bringing like to Mexico.
Because of how things get normalized, you have some people who either are unaware of consequences exist in other places still, or have become so bold that they're just like, oh yeah, this is normal. And you're like, this is only contextually normal in your local area.
Yeah, if you go to Singapore, you're punishable by death.
Right, really bad. I mean, Groove Rider going into the United Arab Emirates, and he had something like 3 grams, and they're like, yeah, we want to keep you over 15 years or something.
Who was that?
He's a drum and bass DJ.
Oh.
I know a guy who ended up
I've heard a few stories like that.
What looked like it was going to be a life sentence in Bali for mailing himself a pound. And he ended up, I think he was in there for 6 years, and he got a royal pardon.
6 years in the Bali prison?
Not good. Yeah, those stories were not good. And I mean, my heart goes out to him because especially for having pre-existing medical conditions, they're not making any special concessions. It's like either you have money to cover this or you can writhe in pain. Yeah, so for anyone listening to this, if you're going to do dirt,
check your bag.
Yeah. And especially depending on places you're going. I mean, some of the really strict ones still will even just test your blood.
Well, that's what me and Kyle were looking at, going to Thailand, but stopping in like Singapore. Yeah. And then we looked up the laws there. And if you have drugs in your system, it's considered like trafficking and it's punishable by death. Yeah. Like you get a caning if you graffiti any sidewalk there.
There are certain places that I think, as a world traveler, I've lived abroad. I've lived in a bunch of different places. I like, just on principle to a certain extent, but also just this culture is so antithetically different than my beliefs that I don't need to
stay the fuck away.
Yeah. But Hold on, because I want to round up.
Yeah, let's round this up because I got to take. We'll round this story up and maybe we'll take a little smoke break and because I think we're going to be doing close to 3 hours. So we'll have to. I want to take a break,
Maybe
but let's
4 hours.
Yeah, I mean we got the time on the cards. So
I mean it's still light out.
Yeah.
Okay.
When the sun's going down, this is great. But yeah, so let's wrap this segment up here.
Having this and what this set the stage for was now we're hitting like year 4 or 5 of practice, and we're setting up that cannabis is about to be legal in California. I'm starting to get a lot more traction and attention for what I'm doing. I'm now writing articles for Dope Magazine, and having this, I have clients. First 2 years, clients were so thin because no one was interested in this yet. It was having to explain the value of what this was not in the literacy, and it's still one of the things I actively work on of trying to explain what the value of these things are. But I mean, just the simple, especially for what I do mainly, a brand, can you own and protect your brand? If Coca-Cola says we own Coca-Cola and we want you to fucking knock it off with using Coca-Cola, that thing is what I do. And that's where the importance is.
But you focus that on like the marijuana industry. Because at the beginning, like stores couldn't even advertise, like dispensaries here in Colorado couldn't advertise their merch of their dispensary on their shirt.
Right.
Like I remember I had to make a cow for somebody and it was questionable, like, cause it was a real branded logo thing.
Right.
But,
and that's every state. Some people might not be aware of this, but every state has their own different set of standards for anything from advertising to like, can you put a billboard on an interstate highway or does it have to be off of an interstate highway? If I have branded merch, do I need to have the license of my cannabis type on it, or can I just have branded merch? Can I sell uninfused beverages at my dispensary, or does my license type only allow me to sell cannabis products? Every state has their own flavor profile of this, which makes this just so much more confusing. Or if you become a multi-state operator, trying to do compliance in every state, you have to really be compliance focused because you're like, what floats in California might not float in Oklahoma.
And is it ever changing too?
Ever changing.
Yeah.
And this is where the industry, there are so many things that are working against the industry, the cannabis industry right now, but without getting past prohibition, it is such a patchwork effect of trying to understand what you can or can't do with them being ever changing. I mentioned that I'm an internationally published author. I started working on that a year ago. We just went to press within the last 2 weeks. Some of the stuff in my chapters already it's changed. It's like,
so is it better to ask for forgiveness or permission in this sense?
Depends on the state.
Okay.
Because some states will hem you up.
And then we're getting into the whole THCA factor of this too, because that is totally legal.
When we hit 2018, and that's when
Farm Bill.
Right. But also the year California legalized cannabis.
This episode is brought to you by WNC CBD, a family-owned company based out of Asheville, North Carolina, committed to quality, transparency, and community. All of their products are third-party lab tested to ensure purity and consistency, so you know exactly what you're getting. No shortcuts, no surprises. They're proudly partnered with the Last Prisoner Project, supporting criminal justice reform and helping release people incarcerated for non-violent cannabis offenses. WNC CBD also gives back through their Carolina Comeback, with 100% of proceeds going towards helping North Carolina rebuild from Hurricane Helene. They have discounts for veterans and over 18,000 five-star reviews. It's clear their customers feel the love too. If you're looking for quality and a mission that matters, go to WNC-CBD.com and put in code STASH25 for 25% off of your order. This episode is brought to you by Puffco. Whether you're pulling late nights in the studio or sitting at home in your sweatpants watching cartoons, Puffco keeps your hits clean, tasty, and terp heavy. As a glassblower, I can say this: they nailed the science and they left the art up to us. Tap in with Puffco and elevate your ritual without ever lighting up.
A lot goes on in that year. Not only do we have California legalized cannabis, but we also have the Farm Bill, which starts to create an immense amount of confusion because now we have a federally legal rubric for hemp, but marijuana is still illegal. And then subset California now has legalized marijuana.
Med or rec?
Rec.
Okay.
Or adult use. Which, fun fact, because I was waiting for the shift, we all knew that it was happening. I flew down on January 1st in the evening, and I hand submitted.
You flew on New Year's?
Day. I hand submitted the first trademarks for cannabis in the history of California on Tuesday because the office was closed.
Wow.
And that was, I met Jack Harer's son was one of the other people.
No way.
Attendance. Yep. There was another law firm. And then there is a famous hash maker who made the clear.
On that note, Jack Hara.
This is one of my favorite cultivars. Also, for the purpose, don't call it strains.
Okay.
There are no strains.
No.
Strains are only applicable in virology, mycology, and certain genetically modified foods.
Really?
Yeah, but from a botanical
It's such a
standpoint,
common term. Like,
and this is where, because it's been a subculture,
yeah,
it has created its own bad habits.
So what is it then? Strains? Where are all the different species?
Cultivars and varietals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cultivars.
Cultivars and varietals. Varietals, and I might get this a little mistaken, but varietals might be a naturally occurring plant that we just discovered, and we're like, hey, that's a new type of plant, this varietal. Where a cultivar means it's been cultivated for specific traits. So if you're like, oh, we did a pheno hunt and we wanted to refine this purple weed, that would be making steps towards making a cultivar. Or if you're like, hey, I can get this rose to express yellow and it smells like bananas, but I have to do genetic breeding to get there, you're creating a new cultivar.
Yeah, and there's some THCA strands, or I don't know if it's THCA or THC, what the other letter is, but they can suppress your appetite, and there's all different.
THCV.
Okay, yeah, so they have different effects.
Yeah, and that is a cannabinoid.
Cannabinoid.
Which is part of a chemovar profile. So every cannabis plant has a magnitude of different cannabinoids in it. The overall image of what that cannabinoid profile is the chemovar profile. Pretty sure I'm saying that correctly. This smells delicious.
Yeah, I'll roll some up. I got a grinder here.
Grinder? Okay.
Yep.
You know, I'm going to trust your grinding skills. I'll just keep talking.
Okay, yeah, so we're so you dropped this off.
Yes. No, and I successfully registered what I believe are the first trademarks for cannabis in the history of California, which was awesome.
That's amazing. Congratulations. That's
Another one of
epic.
those wasn't a genius about it. I just saw that there was a change and I showed up. So 2018 is gangbusters in California for money. Stuff's flowing because everybody's excited. All this opportunity.
Were the laws put forth?
Yeah, and I mean, as of January 1st, 2018, cannabis became legal in California.
And the rules were
there, and that totally cratered after a while because they kept changing the rules. So it was like they put forth the initial, here's the regs, and then changed it like 15 times, which just kept hurting small business owners. But that's where my business especially took off because there was just prior to 2018, you couldn't register. So trademarks have federal registration in the United States and state registration in the United States. You can register at both levels.
Okay.
State only protects you in the state that you're in. Federal is a national registration.
Okay.
You still cannot register a trademark for high THC cannabis.
To this day
at the federal level.
Okay.
But at the state level, if the state has legalized for at least, most have accepted it at medical, but definitely if they have adult use or rec, you can register your brand with the state and lock up your state for protection.
So like ChemDog, you know ChemDog, Greg? Have you heard ChemDog? He started that strain.
I know the cultivar, right?
Okay, yeah. So that's our friend Greg out of Massachusetts. And now that strain, ChemDog, is pretty, worldwide known, and there's all these offshoots of it.
Right.
And he's spelling dog differently on some of them, like Chem Dog. Does he have any sort of protection now, or is it the ship sailed?
Rule 12, TMEP Rule 1202.12 that says trademarks cannot function as a trademark if they're a name of a varietal or cultivar. And so this is where the cannabis industry has shot itself in the foot repeatedly, just mainly because they don't know. This is what it's like. This is a niche aspect of intellectual property, especially of trademark law. No reason why an average person would know this.
Yeah.
But because we're a subculture, having people say, "Oh, my brand is the name of this type of weed,"
Yeah.
you can't. That overlap doesn't work.
What if you created that brand? Because he did
right,
create that
even
cultivar.
If you created that. So the only way to protect the cultivar in the United States are through plant patents, a utility patent, or breeder's rights.
Okay.
Breeder's rights are still currently not accessible because you have to do a submission of seeds with them, and the U.S. repositories will not accept seeds for cultivars that will germinate into high THC. So that's not an option. And utility and plant patents have been granted for specific cannabis cultivars. Those are in existence.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For other plants too?
Yes. And I mean, in a case where there's been an existing cultivar that's been out there, they're generally not eligible because one of the requirements for a patent is there has to be novelty, and novelty means it has to be new. And if it's already in the marketplace, you can't go backwards. As soon as it hits the public domain, there's no going back.
Huh.
Yeah. So the Farm Bill, which was getting legalized at the same time California's legalizing or goes into law, creates an immense amount of confusion nationally because the way the law was written legalized cannabis sativa L if it was 0.3% or less THC by dried biomass.
Yeah.
So what we end up with
Yeah.
is a situation where, well, what if I just took a bunch of 0.3% and condensed it? I could, over a big enough field and enough biomass, make 100% pure THC.
Yeah. Is that what people are doing?
Is that federally legal? Well, what about all the novel cannabinoids that aren't just THC? Because this is only looking at THC. What if I go after CBG, CBN, THCA? The law didn't speak to that at all. And that has created this massive confusion that we're seeing today. Mm-hmm. And right now there's actually multiple points of potential legislation that is going to undo some of this, much to what would be the detriment of the hemp industry as a whole. And in my belief, a big step backwards with cannabinoids. And
is that
normalizing.
In motion right now?
It is in motion. There's debates about that. Right?
How do we all band together and who do we write to change?
I mean,
go in the right direction.
Would
your
look
local
for like there's a huge issue going on in Texas right now where, from my understanding, there is a bill sitting on Governor Abbott's desk that if he signs his name to it, these would be prohibited.
I saw the report or the ad where he was like, "Would you want your kids buying these?" And he had all the THCA things out.
And so
it's
what that will do is recriminalize a product that has been accessible for at least 5 or 6 years. And
it's already in all the stores. Are they going to
So nature abhors a vacuum. If somebody likes this, I mean, I saw one interview with a man who said, I'm a retired vet. I was on a bunch of pills and opiates. Didn't want to be on them anymore. The fact that this is accessible in Texas has allowed me to shift what I use. This might not be perfect, but I don't have to take a ton of opiates anymore. I call that a win.
Yeah.
The idea that would be taken away from him because he's like, I don't want to be a criminal. I'm not trying to buy these things on the street. Mm-hmm. It's a shame. And I think it'll criminalize a lot of behavior that has been normalized over the past few years. And Texas isn't the only state. I mean, Tennessee, from my understanding, is going through a similar thing.
I heard North Carolina too, isn't
There's a lot.
Something.
It's primarily states that have not made a functioning medical, let alone definitely have not adopted an adult use or rec program.
Really?
Yeah. So southern states often fall into that category. But so the Farm Bill comes into effect. That also opens up now an opportunity for me because hemp is federally legal. Now I can get a federal trademark for that. I couldn't get it for high THC, but if you want me to get a trademark registration for smokable hemp cigarettes, I can do that.
Really? Has anyone done that?
Oh yeah. If I wanted to get a trademark registration for a glass pipe that its purpose is only for smoking hemp, that should be federally allowed because that's not paraphernalia, because hemp is legal.
So what did we get the trademark for? Or no, we didn't get a trademark. We got copyright.
We're working on some trademarks.
Yeah, well, we got the trademark too. We got the trademark for
Robertson Stash.
Robertson Stash and the cartoon. We're going to drop
I don't
the.
normally talk about clients' business if clients want to talk about their
Yeah,
business.
I'm being open and transparent here with my lawyer buddy. But okay, so copyright. We copyrighted the piece first, but we're also doing some trademarks right now.
We've done some trademark work.
But you were
especially
talking
on
about
Stash.
someone can copyright a device for smoking marijuana.
You could trademark a brand for smoking accessories for federally legal hemp,
Okay.
right? And so where we're at as a sticky wicket is this hemp
Yeah.
or is this hemp? And
Yeah.
I mean, if you just ask an enforcement officer by sight,
Yeah. How do you tell?
can't tell.
Did they have a testing kit in their car, the
And are they
patrol
willing-
cars?
Are they willing to do that testing on
Or
site?
maybe they light it up and they take a test and they'll be like,
Also, for the idea of paraphernalia, one of the elements to determine is what is the intent of the manufacturer. So if I said I am making, and Raw had to deal with this, if I'm making those rolling papers to consume high THC cannabis, that's paraphernalia. But if I'm making this to consume,
did you hear they just bought High Times too?
not for tobacco use, for use only with legal smoking herbs.
Does it say on the package
Says
there?
on the package.
Oh, no way.
So because it's only for legal smoking herbs, anything that's legal, then this is not paraphernalia because that's my intent. I want this only to be used for federally lawful purposes. And so this is the classic, how did we have head shops? Don't say bong because that's paraphernalia.
Well, the intent, that really saved me and moving forward with when all my work got seized. Just having that simple intention letter in the top of my boxes would have saved. You know what? I might still be in Canada if I had one originally. So really, that was a blessing in disguise to move here.
That was an odd moment in time.
But yeah,
And
so
what year was that?
2014, I think.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So we're already past that by 2018. No, so you want to tell that story?
Well, I mean, that was another
That was
interaction that you and me had
that was another
that
bud
you
moment.
really.
That was hey, what do we do here?
Well, yeah. Well, I was doing a show in San Diego at Jags Gallery, and I shipped all my boxes of all my glass to the show, and I was tracking the package, and it said it cleared customs. So I was like, okay, I hop on the flight, I go to San Diego, and I remember them passing me the boxes with a white face, and she's like, and I touched them, and I'm like, what the hell? These they're empty. So there was no seizure papers, no nothing. It looked like someone surgically, taped the box back together. And I look at there's 2 boxes, double boxed, and all my packing material and no glass. So someone took a lot of time to take all the glass out, wrap it all back up, ship it. It was kind of crooked what they did, saying it cleared customs.
Right.
So anyways, 3 weeks later, we all get seizure papers in the, in the mail. And we were trying to fight it, basically, for a little while. And then, they came back with a 16-page report about these aren't oil lamps. These apparently are pipes online. And, they were like, if you want to take it further, we had to pay the prosecution's retainer $5,000 to fight ourselves. So we dropped it then. It was a losing case. Yeah.
Because I mean, after you get into the idea of what is the intent, and then okay.
Because if I ship an apple
and
with you
well, and that's it. An apple could be a pipe depending on the day, right?
Exactly.
What you were looking at with the uphill fight, especially with how social media is used, because you can even have situations where your intent says, "Oh, I don't want this to be used for federally unlawful purposes," but then somebody's like, "Oh, I am going to use it for a syringe." Is a classic one.
Yeah.
It's a medical good. Up until someone uses it to shoot drugs, now it's paraphernalia. The original manufacturer didn't intend that to happen, but it got converted with the intent of the user.
So the original manufacturer is off the hook because they have an intention.
Because they did not have the intent to do that. And I mean, I want to say 5 or 6 different elements. We could pull it up if you want to. But you go through it and each one is graded and you do the okay, well, how does this apply? Does it maybe not apply? Does it strengthen the fact that it probably is paraphernalia or not? And
so when they're trying to make the case, if it's paraphernalia, they go through 5 different.
Yeah. And actually, I think that's probably worthwhile.
Yeah, let's check that out.
Okay.
Because I'm curious of, how they categorize my
matters
artwork.
considered in determination of what constitute drug paraphernalia. 1, instructions, oral or written, provided with the item concerning its use. Descriptive materials accompanying the item which explain or depict its use. National
Okay, check. Wait.
or local advertising concerning its use. The manner in which the item is displayed for sale. Whether the owner or anyone
5
in
now.
control of the item is a legitimate supplier of like or related items to the community, such as a licensed distributor or dealer of tobacco products. So if you have a tobacco license, there's already a special exception for you. Direct or circumstantial evidence of the ratio of sales of the items to the total sales of the business enterprise. That's an interesting one where there was a case about these small roses that came in small glass vials that were being sold. And really you could smell crack out of them. But having the store owners be like, oh no, we're not knowingly selling crack pipes. We're selling flowers. And you're like, wait a minute. And then lastly, expert testimony concerning its use, which I have a great story. Do you know the name Max Montrose?
I don't.
No,
not familiar.
Cannabis activist, interesting dude, very much into the weeds on plant medicine and cannabis. But I was contacted by a defense attorney in Oregon who said, hey, I know you have a relationship to the glass pipe community. We have a glass shop that was raided in, I want to say it was North Carolina. It was in a college town. And the police prosecuted that de facto, which means just in its nature, glass pipes are illegal because you only can use glass pipes to consume drugs. And in that case, high THC cannabis was at that time. And so it was like, well,
I mean, it's kind of true, but like
Is
you
it
could,
though?
well,
infinite myriad of options.
yeah, you could smoke anything you want out of
So
those.
he asked me, he's like, do you know anyone who might be able to speak to this as an expert witness? And so I remember, I think I was talking to Adam Dunn about this, and he mentioned.
Oh, I remember Adam Dunn. Wait,
yeah.
he had like a radio show around here a long
he's still
time.
got a podcast. Yeah. He's,
Okay, he was one of the first. When
Yeah.
I first moved here to Denver, I kind of like linked up with him.
Famous moments.
He had like a
in
gallery
history.
or something like it.
Adam, it's funny too. Like, so when I was in Amsterdam, and Adam is one of the founders of Hoodlam Jackets.
Hoodlam. Okay, yeah. I went to his factory actually and I went there with Jason and we went to the factory in Amsterdam and picked out some gear. Yeah.
So when I was living in Amsterdam, there was an event called Cheeky Monkey Monday. Actually, it's still running. It's the longest running drum and bass weekly in Western Europe. And every Monday, drum and bass music from like 9 to 6 in the morning. And one of the DJs who played at it was the store manager. So I was going in the shop a lot. And then when Hoodlam opened a shop on
Now it's fresh hemp, right?
It is.
Yeah. I was looking at their jacket. I want a new one. They last forever. They're sweet. Yeah.
I've been fortunate to meet a lot of really interesting people. And I think because of my investment, this is my life. Like when I said I had my vanilla gig, I was putting on a suit to go to an office to do this thing. Now
you were in a red ocean and then you saw a market and you kind of went into a blue ocean.
And it was like, this is what I do. Like I am that person. Now I'm putting on suits when I want to look nice at these events, but this is what I do in my spare time. I go see the Grateful Dead. I go see drum and bass DJs. I go to weed parties. So it's authentic. And I think that shines through with a lot of people.
It's the key to happiness.
There's plenty of attorneys who are not in this space where they're like, okay, this is a business thing. I also kind of don't care what you're doing, but you should pay me because you need me. Anyhow, meeting Adam in San Francisco where there was a jacket with a tiger on the back of it. And I was like, wow, this looks interesting. And it says Admiral Gallery. I'm like, oh, that's a tattoo shop in Amsterdam that I have a tattoo from. And he's like, that's where I've got my tattoo from. You know,
no way.
They're just like this small, I've had so many unique small world moments that are international now over cannabis, but I think Adam's great. I haven't seen him in a few years. I saw him at his gallery for a drum and bass thing. I went to a weed event probably 8 years ago here. And I think he's great. His podcast I only catch occasionally.
What's it called? Do you remember?
I think it's Great Moments in Weed History.
Okay. We'll have to
Yeah.
shout them out and check it
Him
out.
on the pod. Adam.
I'd love to. Yeah. I haven't I'm sure I don't even know if he knows me, but I went down to his spot.
I can do an introduction.
Yeah. Sure. He's still around.
Man, where were we going?
Do you want to try this Jack Hara?
Yeah, I want to share this Jack Hara.
That one's for you. Or you want to?
No, yeah.
There you go.
I'll take my own. So we talked about the Farm Bill. We got that out of the way. We can talk about how the industry started to crater. And then we can talk about where we're at today. Or we could just jump into some educational stuff where I now have to say disclaimer. None of this is legal advice. None of you are my legal clients. If you think that any of this information is relevant to something you're doing, I strongly encourage you to seek legal representation. And generally don't do it on your own because you can fuck these things up. That's not a shameless plug for work.
What about AI now? Is that your lawyer in your pocket?
Oh my God.
Or can they give false information?
False information up and down. I just saw a great post on LinkedIn by a very nationally known trademark attorney where he's like, just this week, I had 3 instances where clients were like, but AI said this, and it was totally counter to what was going on.
Yeah, because you ask it some questions and it can give you totally false answers. Like I asked it if Trump was shot in the face and it said no. And it was like, really, like we all saw it.
Okay, but what was
in the ear?
And that, I mean...
But you know what it is good for? Like putting in the legal mumbo jumbo, all the words, and then saying, can you simplify this to me? I think it would...
Streamline, or hey, I need a starting template for document. Obviously that needs to be polished significantly, but it takes care of the white screen paralysis where you're like, I don't know what to write, or I don't know how to put this together. There is utility to it.
Or filtering the lawyer talk to like someone who's
totally works. Yeah. And
because sometimes it's pretty confusing when you read those legal terms. It's like here, within, without.
What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Covering our asses is what they're doing.
Right.
In every which way possible.
So none of this is legal advice. Also, if you're going to use AI for legal work,
which one do we use?
I don't encourage you to do that.
Okay. Yeah.
But I would use it as a save time and money where potentially you start something and then take it to an attorney.
I think that's a great tool for that.
You
save a lot of money.
You can save money. Although some attorneys I've talked to who they've had this happen, they're like, it's going to cost you more for me to edit this than just to use what template I have.
Yeah.
That this is not good. So also risky, like just proceed with caution and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's some good
advice. I think we've hit, I mean, I have some crazy stories about Jamaica. But let's talk about like what I do, right? Like, let's talk about the law. Let's do this learning curve. So intellectual property is an umbrella term, like saying glass pipes. How many different types of glass pipes are there? You got a hammer, you got a Sherlock, you got a sidecar, you got all these sub things.
Crack pipe.
You got a crack pipe. Yeah, there you go. A glass crack pipe.
They have to be out of glass, I think.
So intellectual property, and then the 3 big ones are trademark, copyright, patent. But there's also geographic indication, right of persona, trade secrets. Yeah, so there's smaller fringe ones that are not as widely discussed.
So you can own trade secrets.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Trade secrets are huge money.
How do you enforce?
You have to prove that it's a secret, and you've taken reasonable steps to make sure that it's secret, and it has to have a competitive advantage in the marketplace.
Okay.
And if it does, then
so that wouldn't be like
a
glassblower coming up with a new technique and being like, I'm going to own that shit.
It could.
Really?
It could. So we'll start with the big 3, and I'll go through each one of these. So copyright is artistic works fixed in a tangible medium, right? Running the gambit of it could be a glass sculpture. It could be, we said we were going to do this for glass pipes. Okay, so copyright would apply to glass pipes you create a neon yellow samurai shaped bong. The aesthetic out of the outside potentially could be protectable for copyright if it's distinct and unique enough.
Okay.
But the function of the bong, the smoking function, does not qualify for copyright protection.
Okay.
So like there was one case I saw where a hookah manufacturer had copyright protection on like 3 different designs of bases. and they were trying to sue another hookah manufacturer because they had the same shape of the base, really that hourglass kind of looking figure.
Yeah.
And that got thrown out, where it's like that hourglass shape is the functionality of how it works.
Someone can patent that shape, though?
Copyright.
Copyright
Right
the
now
shape. Okay.
So the copyright only protected the aesthetic depiction on the outside. So they had a
How unique was the shape? Was it just like...
No. And shape is the generic thing that cannot be protected.
Oh,
It is
okay.
the aesthetic. So a Sherlock pipe could not just get a copyright protection for itself.
Okay.
That is a generic shape. Right?
Okay.
That is widely known, widely used. Now, if you added 15 wigwag marbles to it and it was in a very unique expression, now we're getting to a place where you're like, yeah, that actually might qualify for copyright protection.
I couldn't see anybody doing that and it holding up and being
Understood.
well liked at all.
Oh, no.
Like,
You
know,
want to go into
I-
likability. Let's talk about likability and copyrights.
those two words don't go very well together.
I'll disagree with that because I recently helped old hippie register a copyright registration for a psychedelic adult film that he made in 1972. He's super happy. And the film world, for the most part, seems to have widely received it as positive. Especially it helped preserve the legacy of the director. And, so I think situationally, sometimes people, if you want, I'm not going to push you in a direction, but if you want to speak to that,
Well, so the reason why I moved forward with getting a copyright,
tell me about what you did.
because
Tell me
I was
about
just
what you
seeing
wanted. Right.
tables of similar pieces
Give
that were
context to
getting
the story.
better and
You
better.
gotta give context to
So
the
I was getting my work ripped off in Nepal. And they were, everything I posted on my Instagram page, there was, I don't know who was making it. It was some studio. I know it was coming out of Nepal. Right. But, I'd go to these trade shows and I would see tables of them and they were getting better. And stores were saying, Robertson inspired, or people that didn't know were tagging me as Robertsons. And even World Star posted this couple getting married. And it was two of my knockoffs, and they hit it when they and everyone tagged me, but then they're like, "Oh, those are knockoffs." And so I decided to get these copyrighted, and
explored that.
we explored that, and then
it worked.
It worked.
The federal government did grant you copyright registration for a limited amount of works.
Yeah, and when I was at one of the trade shows, and my friend Danger, shout out Danger. He was like, they're here. The people with your knockoffs. So I was like, okay, get your camera rolling. Let's go. And we walk into the booth and I'm like, oh yeah. I'm like, can I take pictures of these? And he's like, no pictures. And I'm like, well, too bad, man. I designed all these. And he's like, it's you. And he's like, we don't have your 3 copyrights. So they respected having those 3 copyrights, which, that was a moment. We shook hands on the way out of there.
I want to illustrate that, especially for people in the glass industry who are listening to this, because I remember reading through the comments on those posts. And
people were making drafts with dicks coming on their faces.
right.
And being like,
And what that shows is there's
I was like, nice camels.
a limited, especially because that giraffe with a dick on its face, coming on its face, that had its own copyright. That was its own original artistic work.
Yeah.
So it's like
people just didn't really understand, I think,
Right,
because they were like, "Oh, I can't make a draft." No, you can. I would
you can
encourage
make your own
that.
version.
Yeah,
Make your own version of it, because if in that a copyright is very limited in what it protects, and so if you told 3 different artists draw a bird, you're going to get 3 different birds. Each one of those, because it's an original artistic work, qualifies for copyright protection. Which, if they wanted to register it and enforce it, says, don't knock off my bird.
Yeah.
But everybody can still keep making birds. That doesn't occupy it in a way where it's restrictive. Patents can do that in a what's called a patent thicket. Copyrights don't do that.
yeah.
You're still going to have people writing love songs. You're going to have people,
So Satva versus Lowry, that was a case before
okay.
mine, right? And it was when someone tried to copyright a glass jellyfish.
Oh yeah, and that was found to be not.
And then they revoked it because then one of the students started ripping him off.
Right.
And he's like, well, I got a copyright for it. And then they took it to court and they was like, well, you can't copyright something identical to nature.
Right.
And then
and because his copyright would have been so narrow to that individual jellyfish. It's not every jellyfish. Each one of them looks very different.
So this is new territory, I guess.
It is a lesser known artists. So this is one of the reasons studying intangible property, intellectual property, right? Intangible stuff it's not intuitive. It's counterintuitive in many ways, where you're like, okay, what does this mean? And then what is the scope of protection for what I get from it? And so oftentimes, especially working with creatives, they don't look into any of this stuff. That's not their language. That's not the stuff they're worried about until they're getting knocked off.
Yeah.
And these are the tools
exactly
that help you and protect you if you're getting knocked off.
So it's a precautionary thing. If you know,
it's a way to give someone a possessive right for a thing they created, right? And you get a very small right with that. It doesn't give you the right to the world. Patents are a little bit different, but yeah, I mean, and
because some artists are dealing with that, like Saki got one from Hello Kitty, I think,
right,
and Ari got one from one Lava Lamp,
right,
and then Morrison just had to take everything from Sesame Street off.
The glass industry itself has created a lot of bad habits of what they consider to be borrowing. Sometimes I hear people say things like, "This is fair use."
Well, there's satire, right? So I made a Batman wearing a giraffe, and it's like for the one-time use.
Satire works well so long as you never monetize it. As soon as you do something with sales,
I sold that piece.
As soon as you start to do sales around that, satire holds
Come and
up
get me.
a lot less. I mean, there are ways to make it work. If you remember, there's plenty of satirical movies that parody, satire other existing films. So there
And
are
don't get
ways to
sued
do
into
it.
the ground.
But you have to make it substantially different enough from the original idea. It's got to have its own unique creativity that goes to it. Generally with satire also, you're supposed to be making a point. You're like, okay. Like Ron English, like his fat, McDonald's, fat Ronald.
Yeah.
Like, okay. That's
so could McDonald's
they could
get
try,
him?
but also I would argue that's satire. That's showing that there is a problem.
But he's making many of those, right?
But also
selling them.
That's a social commentary, right? That is fast
Is it the
food
same
is
like M?
creating obesity? I don't know. I would have to look at
Maybe
the
he changed it slightly to
the finer details of it, because what you can also have is overlapping intellectual property rights, which can cause a huge problem, which Hitman Glass, Starbucks.
Yeah, and Dabbuccino, there was a Evil.
And so what that was is the overlap of copyright and trademark. And my understanding for Evil doing a no-show default judgment, he had a judgment both for trademark infringement and for copyright. Going back to like getting into the different types.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about glass pipes, copyright. Okay, if it's unique artistic expression, probably has a copyright protection innately just because you're an author, but also if you ever want to enforce it or monetize it, you should register it with the U.S. Copyright Office. Right?
Yeah, and how do you do that? Can you just mail yourself?
No.
Like I've heard there's a poor man's patent.
That is a lie. That does not work. You can do copyright registration kind of easy. There's some technical ways to fuck up the application, but just the recording of it, you can go to the website and there is a try to walk you through the registration process. Using copyright when you get into contractual obligation, that's when it gets immensely more technical. That's like the right of publication or right of rebroadcast. But just doing the recording, some people might be able to, if you're pretty good with paperwork, you might be able to bite that off. So that is copyright. Trademark, source of origin indicator of goods or services that allows a consumer to know where the goods and services came from. So when I see Coca-Cola, I know that comes from the Coca-Cola Corporation.
And how long can they hold their trademark for Coca-Cola? Is that just
indefinite if you do renewals? Good you highlighted that, because copyright is life of the author plus 70 years after death.
Oh, wow.
And after that, it goes into the public domain. So this is why we're seeing Steamboat Willie is now in the public domain. Winnie the Pooh, no red shirt, is in the public domain.
Really?
Yeah.
No red shirt.
So if glassblowers were going to look at some cultural things that they were going to recreate,
Yeah.
that they didn't want to worry about,
Winnie the Pooh's up for grabs right now?
so long as you don't red shirt and you don't mirror. Because if you look, there's two different horror movies that have already come out. Steamboat Willie has one and Winnie the Pooh has one.
Okay.
You just want to make it substantially different enough, and they really don't have
Like the storyline or the character?
the storyline, vastly different if you're going to include a storyline, but the depiction of the character.
Oh.
So it's like you can do a knockoff no red shirt Winnie the Pooh now with a much lower chance of getting a cease and desist letter, right?
Oh.
Right. But every year this is going on because you have the death year and then 70 years. So there's different songs, different movies, constantly going into the public domain. Every year there's usually...
Could like do a Charlie Chaplin movie?
It would be, right. We'd have to
his
look
family.
And see how long...
I wonder, maybe.
Dracula.
Oh,
right,
yeah. They just had a new one come out.
Right. Which, if you know the history of Nosferatu, right?
Yeah.
So that was a remake of the original film. Nosferatu was originally pitched to the Bram Stoker estate, who Bram Stoker wrote Dracula, said, hey, we want to make a vampire movie. And they said, no, we don't give you the right to do that. You can't use the book to make a movie. So they're like, okay, we're going to make a movie, but we're going to call him Count Orlok instead of Count Dracula. And he's going to be from an Eastern European country. And there's going to be a lot of rats. There's going to be some wolves. So the Bram Stoker's estate sued them in the European
For
court.
Nostradamus? Or for
Nosferatu. Copyright infringement, and won. And the order was all of the copies of the movie have to be destroyed. But a few had been pocketed, and then a few had already been sent abroad, some to the United States. That's why that movie lived on. But that movie was busted on copyright violation.
That's an interesting story.
Because of Dracula. Right? And so,
so that new one that came out, who do you think?
Oh, you're free and clear by this point. We're in the public domain. They're in public domain. You can use that story. Yeah, you can do that.
But if they were to hold their trademark?
You're missing copyright and trademark.
Okay.
That's copyright.
Okay.
Right? Copyrights, after it goes into public domain, copyright is in public domain. Trademark, so long as you renew it, it can be indefinite.
Okay.
And so you could, like, Seagram's has been around for a long fucking time. There's some rum companies that their trademark protection predates Prohibition and then had a suspension during Prohibition and then came back.
You just got to have someone in line
Actively
to
file and keep it up. And so trademarks, because they protect the source of origin, and you indicate the old-timey theory, it's actually consumer protection law. So if I had good medicine and I had my trademark on it, people could confidently buy that and it would help them. I then got the bonus that other people couldn't use that trademark to cause confusion, to drive sales their direction, especially if it was an inferior product and it might hurt someone. So trademark protection originally is about protecting consumers, but now it's grown into brand protection. And so like, Nike, what is the value of the swoosh? What is the value of the word Nike? That's billions of dollars, right? So that in and of itself is now an asset. Trademarks have restrictions where you can only do it for things that are lawful. That's why we have a problem with not being able to do high THC cannabis. Couldn't also get a trademark for cocaine processing or hitman services. Couldn't do those because they're all illegal, right? Although there is some debate about if that technically is included in the Lanham Act, which is the current major governing body of law for trademark law.
Well, they're doing MIPS in Canada now. It's like assisted suicide.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder if they can.
That's still at a
That's like a
state
hitman.
level.
That's like a government hitman.
That is at a state level issue.
Well, I guess it's not a hitman. It's self hitman.
Right.
But
Oregon has that as lawful, but other states don't have that as lawful. Assisted suicide. Yeah.
well, that's off track of a hitman.
No, but it would be a question. I mean, where
Your machine? Could you brand your
Because-
suicide machine?
Right. So that's a good. So, I mean, so this is what I wrote when I was in Italy. My second master's of law thesis was on the Nice classification system. And the Nice classification system is all trademark goods and services fall into classes 1 through 45. And I did research on how this applies to hemp, cannabis, and marijuana internationally. And do we have harmonization of that yet? Which we don't. But so in the idea of what you just said, if that would be allowed, like assisted suicide services probably would fall into like medical services, which is class 44. And then a suicide machine, I don't know, it would depend on the nature. Like, is a gun included? Is it but that would direct you, what class does this fall in?
Oh.
All goods and services should fall into 1 through 45. So like right now, smokable hemp cigarettes fall into 34. Glass pipes for use with federally lawful hemp fall into 34.
Okay.
Right? Clothing, 25.
So is that what you list at customs too? Is that the number?
Ooh, I don't know about that. I don't think so. No.
Okay.
But
it's not like they have a number for commodities too.
Yes, and
that's
actually,
different.
That's to track tariff rates.
Oh, okay.
That's a different thing. But and there is an international, from my understanding, if memory serves from my international trade days, having the country code numbers for the most part try to align so you harmonize. Where you're like, it's 181 here for tuna, it's 181 there for tuna. We don't have
worldwide.
Worldwide.
Yeah,
just tell me what the different cost is or different tariff rate for each places.
There's nothing like that in the cannabis yet.
We're far from that. So far from that. Patents, right? You mentioned, and I've mentioned that. Innovation, be it a machine, a method, something that is generally a little technical, right? And that gives you a limited monopoly for 20 years. We have utility patents, which is the broadest type of patent. Design patents, which the Louis Vuitton design on the bag that has had a design patent associated with it in the past. Plant patents, which for self-propagating plants and cultivars specifically, you can get a patent for that.
Is that like a GMO? So you got to modify?
GMOs are generally going to end up in a utility patent.
Okay.
Because you've actually done something technical to modify what is included in the plant. So utility is much more applicable as the breeding.
Well, what's a plant patent then? You have to discover the plant?
You have cultivated it to express new specific traits, and you can show that you've put the work into it. And
like
that
extracting a compound in a certain existing
would be like
plant.
How the pheno hunting is done, where you're like, I'm going to back crossbreed until I have uniform. So you need novelty, uniformity, stability of the plant. And if you say, well, I have this lily that is going to express purple and pink, it's never existed before, so that's novelty. When you grow the bulb, and it has to be self-propagating, so lily's not the best example, but when you would grow the bulb, it would be, 90% of these are going to express the traits, right? And then consistently, the propagation off that is still going to do the same thing.
This sounds like a long process to get that because you have to grow a whole crop.
When people in the industry, for the weed industry, says, "Oh, I made a new strain," right?
Yeah.
So there's an international standard under UPOV, which is an international treaty for how to organize and identify new cultivars and varietals of plants. There's a standard for making new cannabis varietals. And you have to do at least 8 back crosses, at least.
Oh, so that's
most
years.
People are mashing pollen, right? I mean, that's at least 8 growing cycles, and then you're supposed to have the uniformity and stability also. So if it's not not consistent, then it's not a thing. It's not a proper.
So do people go through with it still?
Yeah.
So it's profitable just to secure.
I mean, dude, the Dutch are all over it.
Tulips.
Oh yeah, tulips, but also cannabis. They're one of the leading countries for having cultivar registration.
Like a tulip bulb would be as much as a house back in the day. There was a story.
Time.
Yeah.
They had a whole stock market crash of tulip bulbs.
Yeah. The flower.
We're wonky piece of Dutch history. So patents. Yeah. Think about inventions, right? That is the most expensive to register intellectual property type, arguably. Gives you a limited monopoly, gives you the right to exclude, doesn't give you the right to do. So what that means, where I said trademarks, you can't get a trademark for cocaine processing services. You can get a patent.
Damn.
You can get a patent.
How does the cartel get away with all those cool logos?
They're not protecting any of their intellectual property other than guns. But with a patent, you could get a patent for things that are unlawful. And that has already had a case because of cannabis. So there was an argument that a patent should have been denied because it was for cannabis processing. And I want to say it actually might have been for extraction. And the response from the USPTO is, no, we grant patents, but that does not allow you the right to do what we're protecting. You just get to exclude others from doing it. It might not give you the right.
So this was an actual case?
It was an actual case.
And they took away the patent because it was illegal? They left it.
And so that's where for...
so for a cocaine manufacturing system,
you could. If you came up with a novel, it has to be new, but what's odd is it's the USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office. So on one side of the office, you can get patents for cannabis and high THC cannabis products. And in fact, historically, the University of Mississippi, because that's where the DEA was doing all of its cannabis research, they had some of the first cannabis patents because they were doing all the research. You can get a patent on high THC stuff. Trademark Office, other side of the building. No, it's high THC. No, we don't trademark
So
for that.
where is this all going? And like, where do you think it's going to be in 5? Is it ever going to just be one solid law that's going to stick for a while? Or is it going to be changing with every administration or every generation?
I think it keeps changing with every administration. The most comprehensive and sensible explanation I've heard for this that I would endorse is we go back to just having cannabis sativa L, right? And we have one plant. And depending on the cultivar of the plant, some might be high THC, some might be low THC. And what we start working on regulating are cannabinoids and how you use cannabinoids instead of regulating the plant at its level where we're like, well, that is marijuana, that's hemp. That's already too much confusion for people.
Yeah.
Instead of being like, these are products that are legal to be sold, maybe a hemp beverage, and these are products that are not legal to be sold, maybe a 500 milligram hemp beverage.
Okay.
And that to me is more comprehensive and sensible.
Yeah.
As opposed to being like, because there's even now the Farm Bill, 2018 Farm Bill, there's going to be a 2026 Farm Bill. And there has been a proposal of a subcategory of hemp that would essentially be non-cannabinoid producing hemp. And you're like, okay, so now you're taking the definition of the hemp word and creating two definitions? Like that just makes it more confusing. And also, you can't spot check it. It looks like the same.
Yeah.
All these pieces now look the same. So what does this do?
So what's the solution here?
I think it goes back to just looking at the plant and then looking at the application of cannabinoids. Because if you make law too convoluted, people won't follow the law. Both because they say, fuck it, it's convoluted. But also because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I thought it was this. I mean, legitimately, it used to
Like
be
mushrooms right now are legal. Like psilocybin mushrooms are legal here in Denver.
not true.
Yeah, they're legal. They're
They
legal to
are-
have.
They, from my understanding, decriminalized. So you would get a citation.
I thought they were legal. Last I heard, they were legalized.
Okay.
But you cannot sell them. So,
Interesting.
but you can sell us. You can give them away for free. So people are having stickers.
That might be a difference than my
Denver
understanding.
was the first. Let's ask. Let's ask.
do it. Take it to the.
I'll ask
I don't think
chat.
the only place that has legal psilocybin in the nation right now is Oregon, and only through the therapeutic model.
Okay. Are magic mushrooms legal in Denver, Colorado?
Decriminalized.
Let's just see what it says.
See it. I mean, do you trust AI now? Come
Well,
on, bro.
you're gonna get.
Come on, bro.
Here's the current legal situation in Denver and statewide in Colorado regarding psilocybin magic mushrooms.
Right, psilocybin.
What's allowed? Personal use, possession, growing in private residences, and sharing psilocybin mushrooms is legal since the passage of Proposition 122 in November 2022.
Did not know that.
Denver was the first city in the U.S. to decriminalize psilocybin in May 2019. A long time ago.
So yeah, I'm gonna have to do some research about this after this show.
And then here this says under Proposition 122, Colorado allows licensed healing centers to provide supervised psilocybin therapy. These began receiving licenses and opening in 2025. What's still legal? Retail sales remain illegal. You can't sell mushrooms like you can with
This is
cannabis.
definitely not legal advice. None of this is legal advice.
It's Chat GTP. Yeah, let's do a dab from one of our. This is our new sponsor. Well, not our new sponsor. Our day one sponsor, really. But let me get some dabs. Actually, I'm gonna start that one over.
Yeah, get the mushrooms out of there too, man. You're playing with fire. No, so legal to grow, legal to gift, can't have more than 14 grams in possession. Otherwise, problem. And still can end up with felony charges for possession of greater amounts, and especially if you're caught in the act of distribution. So, okay, so how's everybody getting away with it? Because I've heard that, like, it's all cool in Denver. I mean, so what you have happen for some of the, it's like Oakland too, right? You have urban areas where they're like, we have so many other fucking problems that so long as you guys don't fuck up too loudly,
Yeah.
you don't really
I'm eating
fucking
this.
care. There you go. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink. Just do.
All right. Now should we take a sponsored dab break from our...
Sure. Hold on. Let me look at this once really quick. Okay. So we got Origin.
So shout out Puffco. Thank you for being a day one sponsor of the podcast. We're going to test out these Peak XLs.
Yeah, hit me. I just a small snapper.
Tiny little one? Okay.
Yeah, what are we smoking? What are we?
Well, we're smoking on some of WNC CBD's finest top shelf rosin.
Ooh.
So let me grab these dabbers here. We got the Puffco hot dabber things. You've tried these before? And you know you can hook these Puffcos up to your phone to like boost the vaporization. And the only way you can get like maximum vaporization is if you download the app.
Love that. So
And you can plug your phone.
Let's also just say there's so many patents that go into this.
Yeah.
Puffco is a trademark, right? We're a little hard fought to maybe find a copyright on here, but yeah, this is.
Well, I wonder if this shape right here.
Maybe. I mean, that's debatable. This is a pretty common shape, but this is intellectual property in action.
Yeah. Yeah. Roger, man, started something great here. I mean, it's probably the best vaporizer on the market, I'd say.
All right.
Yeah. Definitely is. And PuffCon's coming up soon, so I'm stoked.
I mean,
that's always a good time.
When a vaporizer has their own con,
yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
You know you made it.
So we just put these caps on.
Yep. You got the custom cow cap I made.
Wow. Is that because I'm from Wisconsin? Is that why you're doing
That's
that?
why, yeah.
You just knew.
I remember when I did my first show in Wisconsin, all my cows had 6 udders before that day. And then when I took all the cows to that show, people were like pointing them out. They're like, are these mutant cows?
Yeah.
They have 4.
Right.
We're pretty sure. I'm like, oh, I never. And then after that show, they all had 4.
Right.
So if you got a 6-uddered cow out there, that was pre-Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, keep you schooled on cheeses and cows.
Oh, yeah. And craft beer.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Cheers, man.
Salutes.
So you hit the button twice. Wait, you got to hit the button twice. Yeah, we should probably cheers. And then.
Where's my button?
Oh, wait.
Right here?
Yeah, hit
okay.
twice.
Okay, I'm flashing green.
Is it green? Yeah.
Okay.
Wait. Oh, there you go. Okay. Now you got to wait till it vibrates again. And then you're ready.
And then you're ready.
Yeah, so, it wasn't the most profitable thing, but copywriting my pieces. But you know what? I got to...
There's a thing.
I got to flex it one time, and then they stopped making
intellectual
it.
property rights aren't always about monetizing. Sometimes
Cheers.
it's just about protecting.
Yeah.
So
I mean, because if this whole empire I'm trying to build,
I mean, I've talked to some artists who, there was a woman, her father was a very prolific painter, and he didn't seek copyright registration during the course of his life, but she inherited his copyright for that 70 years after death. And she just wanted to protect her dad's work so people couldn't rip it off.
That's like Jimi Hendrix, dude, too. And his sister,
all the musicians, those estates always have such interesting, at the time of decease, who gets what for what rights. Some people just inherit certain songs. Some people get entire catalogs.
See how much you were liked by the artist, what you get.
Yeah, there you go.
What was I going to say?
Potato.
Idaho.
There you go. Geographic indication.
There you go. It's burned in my brain.
There you go.
When I say potato, what do you think? Idaho?
Geographic indication. No, see, we're full circle moments. So
Yeah.
we've knocked out so much of this, but there are a few things.
What can you give any advice to people if they get pulled over with weed? What do you do?
Shut the fuck up.
Uh-huh.
There's actually a great shout out to Pot Brothers at Law.
I've seen them just popping up on my Instagram.
Okay. And I've met them. I've done some work with one of them. they have such a clear-cut message of how to handle that situation, and it is so true.
Yeah, he's like, remember these 39 words.
They actually, fun fact, one of my mentors trademark for them "shut the fuck up" as a slogan.
Oh, really?
For legal services.
So you can't say shut the fuck up?
You could not provide legal services under "shut the fuck up."
Oh, wow.
Without having to be able to say, you're encroaching on our turf.
I love that.
I do too.
So like there's a guy, Frank Azar, here in Denver, and he's like, hit by a car, call Frank Azar. Is that
Could be
is that copyright? I mean, no one's going to do it because it's your last name, right?
And actually, surnames oftentimes are not protectable as trademark rights.
It's just a catchy slogan.
Right.
If you use it,
I mean,
go ahead, use it.
anytime you have a little bit of alliteration, they can make for really good slogans. So
But there's sometimes like first to the market, you know, what's the point of like Elon doesn't really copyright anything or patent anything. Does he?
Oh man, he has so many patents.
Oh, I thought he said he didn't.
No.
You lied about that? Oh, we're not going to go there.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. They do have plenty of trademark registrations as well.
So I guess the moral of that story is don't believe what you hear on TV, folks.
Or read from Gronk.
Or ChatGPT.
Exactly.
Yeah. How do people get information anymore?
Got to do your research, figure out if
In
the
books?
source-
Books are fake too, apparently. I mean, they're changing the
They're
history of
biased.
those.
No, and I think my heart goes out to young people, because I remember in my quest for trying to understand this world, being an angsty teenager and being like, what's real?
Imagine now,
right
dude.
now, it's
Like
so much
AI,
harder.
like all the
It's so
fake,
much
deep
harder.
fake videos.
It's
Kyle
so-
sent me one the other day, and I'm like, "That's AI is getting pretty good." And she's like, "Oh, I thought that might be AI."
And this is what's like, they at least have a literacy where they're getting trained much quicker on what kind of looks real, but kind of not. But also that seed of don't trust anything is getting planted in a way that I don't think, I mean, all generations have a variation of it. This one's very intense. And then at the same time, we're like, but use more technology. Just keep using more technology. And you're like, yeah, but that's the stuff that is telling me may or may not be real.
Well, they're saying AI is going to affect a lot of different industries and stuff. How? What about with law? Like
is.
how?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
and there's going to be a lot of
we've already had
attorneys in your pocket where you might be getting false information. You might make a move thinking you're in the
had
right.
Attorneys already been reprimanded. I don't know if anyone's lost their bar card. They've definitely been suspended because they submitted court filings that were written by ChatGPT that made up citations.
I heard a good quote, like all the kids are handing in their papers using ChatGPT, and all the teachers are grading them using ChatGPT.
Right.
And ChatGPT is going to get the job, that they're all applying for.
It's this question, and this is an interesting one for me. I took a philosophy of technology class back in my undergraduate, where just because we can, the ethical response to technology is lowerly considered. We are at a point now where technology is released, we assimilate it, and we only look about the ethics of it generally backwards, where it's like, oh, what did that do? Instead of being like, some of these things are so monumental and so powerful that trying to look backwards now is becoming a lot more precarious. And I think
it's a race, and we're living in it, and it's like happening so fast that
the interesting thing with AI, there is a push to suspend or nullify copyright law. Because,
what do you mean for AI specifically?
Because of AI. So AI, how it works is with data sets, and the data you put in allows it to regurgitate an answer. Mm-hmm. Right? It cannot go outside the scope of this. It does not have creativity to come up with something new. It can only
it scours the internet, or it can be programmed
that's
too.
the problem.
Yeah, because different applications
on the internet have copyrights, and you can't just use them for things. So AI, a lot of the companies are saying, I can't make a quality data pool unless I can just freely take everything in existence and feed it into the data pool.
Well, is it taking it and it's just kind of analyzing it and then coming up with its own answer? So it's just like looking at it on the internet.
Up until
it's not using it.
Right now, the lawsuits, especially from Disney, where you say, okay, design me a Little Mermaid.
It says it won't. Some things.
Okay.
It says this is against our policies, guidelines for copyright.
Right.
Because
currently there is a case pending with Disney and I think Pixar are the two that have sued, saying, listen, you have clearly taken so much of our content and put it in your data pool that your data pool can create assets that either exactly are our copyright or are so strikingly similar that you're like, that's a derivative work of our copyright. And derivative work is still
what I mean, pretty soon you're going to be able to create a movie on some of these apps. Like it's going that the video generation AI
Totally
is
agree.
like, so cartoons, you could prompt it, come up with a cartoon, you know?
So right now, Britain is the most generous that if you write detailed prompts, you can have a copyright as an author now attached from AI created work, from my understanding. The United States, it's still antithetical to our copyright law.
So your prompt, you could copyright your prompt?
Yeah, and in the eyes of the British application of it, because your prompt was the artistic work, the thing that resulted from it is what you created. It didn't create that. You created that with the prompt.
So in Britain, you can copyright your AI generated
Work.
art.
Right. United States still
You can't do that.
anything, and this is where actually I've seen some cannabis companies go south and other companies, but either they use AI to generate a logo or to generate some work that is like the main art on their bag, or they don't own that. No one owns that. That's actually immediately in the public domain.
Huh.
And so you're like, you just work it, you cut the corner of the homework, you got something you wanted, but it's not ownable.
Yeah.
So
And it's probably got 6 fingers and one going like,
and a hot dog.
you know what I saw? There's this ring you can buy that makes your finger stick out like this. So if you're ever busted on camera doing something, you're like, that's AI. Look at the finger. It's like an odd finger sticking out. There's a ring.
The AI finger defense. I
Yeah.
mean, at some point, someone will use that. You know, in the infinite myriad of possibility, we'll probably see
That's
that
AI
somewhere.
generated. Look at that finger.
That was not me. That finger. This other finger over here.
But they're getting pretty good. And with like propaganda too, like who knows? You see something on the TV and it, you know, that can change a whole
the fact
nation.
that some of the voice recording,
Like who knows what's going on right now?
is so good.
Oh, it's-
that you can call someone, and if you can get them to say like a phrase like, "Oh, I don't know who you are,"
Dude, and that's what we're getting released. That's like the AI that's for the general public. Like you think what the government's got, it's 20 years ahead, and it's, you know,
or some major corporations that they just have showcased. They're just like, this is really,
That's probably where it
this
is.
is what this can do.
yeah.
But we can't show that.
Yeah, whatever we don't know, I mean, who knows? So,
What we don't know is we don't know.
you know what? I think so finding something you do in life that makes you happy,
Passion.
you
gotta
know,
pick something.
you can't worry about all that as long because if it ends tomorrow,
So
and
I'll
you're,
go with, this is the reason I do what I do.
let's hear it.
Because I will never be bored.
Yeah.
Intellectual property rights constantly are changing. The application of it constantly are changing. In the duration of what I have done with my career in cannabis, from when I started to where we are now, is night and day.
But you had that
Worlds
experience
of
that a lot of people on the show have. It's where you thought you wanted to do something, you went, you didn't find it, and then you found your passion, and then that's what drives you. Like,
yeah, and that passion,
and that's a real
I encourage
ongoing
people,
theme.
because I have not yet met a wealthy person who can buy a second. So time is not a monetized thing where you can purchase it. If you're not chasing your passion in at least some way, shape, or form, you are trading off time for money that is going to be spent, that unless it's a necessity, and I understand that one, what is this with how you're spending your time? You know? And that to me,
It's a sense of purpose.
we're all going through this funky experience. Why not? Because I think we all know when you feel like, hey, this makes sense and this is important, versus, oh, I'm doing this thing that I really don't give a fuck about. And
For
that's
money,
hard.
for a paycheck, say $500,000, whatever, you know, but it's,
And I understand when there's necessities, like you got to do that. Sometimes
Yeah.
that is the grin and bear it. And hopefully there's some smattering amount of personal time where you can do things that you care about.
Yep.
And I feel very fortunate to be alive in the time and place in history where I get to pick to do this, especially being younger and remembering you talked about weed on the phone. Someone was like, you got to bring your phone. It's like, so not everybody is going to always be able to monetize or pick a career in their passion. I think that that's just very realistic, but finding ways to have passion in your life, that you have that outlet. I think that is fulfillment of the human condition. I really genuinely believe that's the thing that offsets depression. That's the thing that offsets midlife crisis.
And who knows what that could lead to? It could lead to,
and that's it.
Unexpected.
I am also a believer that, especially talking about intuition, like when you start off these paths that you
tap into the frequency.
That's it. You feel like this is where the energy should
Shout out
be.
to Fari.
Okay.
And Jeopardy.
That it's, I think that is one of the takeaways for what I do, and one of the takeaways for what I've seen for people on the show talking about. And I mean, you've definitely picked your life. You know, you've picked an unconventional life. You didn't know you were going to end up here. You had no idea.
No, and I think I chose glass because of the challenge, and I thought it was just something really cool. I was passionate about, and look.
Because then at one point, didn't you want to be a cartoonist?
Yeah, I went to school for animation. Yeah, so then I switched my major. When I saw them blowing glass, I've never even seen glass blowing before, and I just was that immersed and amazed. I was doing ceramic before that, but it was this glass thing. I think that's going to keep me on my toes for a couple decades, and here we are, 2 decades into it.
I probably won't get bored of.
Yeah, that's what I instinctively. I remember I thought animation, paperwork, working for Disney, that seems stressful. I could see being broken many times and just having to answer and just getting bored and work. So then I saw them blowing glass, and I knew that would be challenging.
You saw glass and you weren't this can get broken many times, or I can get broken.
Well, yeah, but I just thought I would be always excited. I'm always learning something new about it. It's such a new medium. It's
And you have really truly seen.
You could probably say that about animation too. It's changing with AI and just
renaissance in what glass has done so much in 10 years, and especially the relationship with cannabis, and then this art form.
Yeah,
it's
it's a perfect medium for me to express.
Use the explanation that cannabis has driven technology in glass, where because of cannabis sales and revenue coming in, new colors were invented that never existed before in that state. And
the weed allowed people to really push the limits of glass too, with some of these bigger projects back in the day.
The cross-cultural exchange, especially with dabs. I mean, when we were in Amsterdam, I credit Dougie doing so much work to bring glass across the ocean. Yeah, because
he's been mentioned many times on this pod, dude.
Yeah. He's had such an influence across the community.
Yeah, his Chalice Fest were sick.
Yeah. I didn't catch one of those. I heard about.
Oh, they were wild, man. They were wild. It was great.
That was still during the era of a little bit of the lawlessness in California.
Mm-hmm.
Those
it's right at the peak of that. And then
really good parties.
Yeah, they were wild.
Yeah.
Yep. How times have changed in the last little while.
And so, question 4, to round this out. So some suggestions for people coming from being a lawyer. 1, always shut the fuck up if you get pulled over by the police.
Okay. What do you mean? What if they're why aren't you talking? We're going to arrest you. And they start grabbing you.
And you actually have to invoke this one. You're like, am I being detained? If the answer is yes, I want to talk to my lawyer. No more talking.
Okay. And what if they grab you out of the car?
Then am I being detained? Am I free to go? You're being detained. I need to talk to my lawyer. Shut the fuck up. That's it.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, just shut the fuck up, I guess. That's the best you can do. Because if you start talking...
The thing you have to articulate is if they say you are being detained, you have to request your attorney. I want to talk to my attorney. Because that stops their ability to do questioning. They're aware that you want...
You got to say you want to talk to your attorney.
You have to invoke it, because otherwise they can keep asking you questions. And keep needling at you. And until you say, no.
You say turn your body camera on, make sure you're...
that's pretty...
Is your body camera working?
Right,
What's your badge number?
There is...
Badge number, officer name.
I have a dear friend who beat a case in South Dakota because he tried to be immensely cooperative. And what that turned into really was the officer was setting him up because he had California plates. And then it turned into, he's like, well, I feel like I've been here a long time. I want to go. And the officer's like, well, there's going to be a car here with a dog pretty quick. And he was like, whoa. What is this about? Am I free to go? And then the cop started evading that answer, not responding to it.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up incarcerated. He got arrested, went through the whole thing. But his lawyer was able to negotiate a no-charge settlement from the DEA because of how badly the cop fucked up.
Oh yeah, procedure.
Procedurally, and that is.
I think that's a good
takeaway.
book to read. Is the like laws and procedures in your state. You know, then you know.
Know your rights.
Know your rights.
Very simply, it's know your rights.
Yeah.
And so that's not even in my wheelhouse of of intellectual property. Intellectual property stuff. What I recommend is if you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, chances are intellectual property rights in some way, shape, or form touch your life. If it's something that you monetize, that's definitely worth seeking protecting it. If it's something that is like more hobby, art, passion, maybe that's not something you'd spend money on, right? But just know that those resources are out there. I think in the world of cannabis specifically for what I do, there's such a name grab already going on with trademark names. Like trying to find a free available brand right now.
Oh yeah, with dab, fire, weed,
Well,
like.
and we didn't even get into how you evaluate a trademark, what's strong, but those would be descriptive. Those are already garbage. But every state that comes online, there's a reinvention of the wheel. So a lot of people grab for that because it's low hanging fruit. And then like one rung up of fruit, you're like, okay, what is like clever weed things? Everybody's already thought of that too.
Weed maps.
And weed maps is an interesting one because initially they got denied because they were descriptive, but they're like, no, it's one word. We made it up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they're like, it's not descriptive, and if it's descriptive, it doesn't qualify for trademark protection.
It's like, how good is your lawyer?
Well, how good is your
or in your imagination, and you're a way to like.
You're right with that. How good is your lawyer or person who knows how to argue? Because if you're going to self-advocate, you just have to be good at arguing and knowing how to.
That's great. I mean, so they made up their own word. Is that going to be
having it? Yeah, that's one of the ways to try and.
Maybe it'll be in what's the dictionary's name? You know how they add a few new words every year.
Oh right.
Skibbity.
Skibbity toilet. No, generally, I mean, I don't think they add brands per se or trademarks. So maybe not, but give it time.
Who knows? Weed maps.
You never know. Shout out to Weed Maps. Okay, so I think the advice is if you're an entrepreneur and you feel like you're monetizing IP, talk to an attorney. That's like not just a shameless plug. It's just I've seen a lot of people get fucked over.
Yeah.
And things get fucked up because they didn't get attended to.
That's something you'd want to hire. You wouldn't want to do yourself, right?
I would if you're good at research and you can figure it out.
Yeah.
You could take a stab at it, but I have seen enough people fuck that up that oftentimes of these things after they're fucked, you just can't.
You could lose it totally.
Yeah, you could lose like. It's
to blow it
into the public domain, or you're in a situation where you're like, I am going to have to spend a boatload of money to prove that I'm right. And oftentimes it's like, now let's do the cost benefit analysis.
Like when we just got that recent trademark, that wasn't available when we were searching for it. And then someone, remember? Abandoned it.
And that's a weird one too, because trademarks, because there's a shelf life and you have to be using them and renewing them, I can run a clearance search for someone and find that it's an unavailable mark. And then 3 years later, if I happen to run a similar search, it might be available now. So timing.
So like a year goes by and that could be.
Right. So that is an interesting, because also when I run a clearance search, I mean, I make the caveat, we need to file this within the next 2 weeks because I don't know who's filing what. And then you could show up and all of a sudden be like, oh, well, we made this decision. Somebody snuck it in before we got ours filed. So you should file as soon as possible if you decide, hey, I want to use that name. If people were going to reach out, you can find me, Luke S. Zimmerman, at law office, Luke S. Zimmerman, no, is that right? LawOfficeLSZ.com.
LSD?
LSZ. Also, cannabislaw.law.
Do you think acid will ever be legal one day?
In its current state or in a very...
LSD? Like...
in its current state or amended.
Well, is it legal for medical use? Like are they starting
recently, there was a breakthrough where it has not the psychedelic effect, but it has the other properties of LSD.
Oh, so it's like a different compound?
That's being explored for pharmaceutical application that supposedly...
What's the fun in that?
Well, no, it's not about fun. It's about medicinal use.
Oh, okay.
Right. That supposedly...
But even with the fun part, it is pretty medicinal.
I would argue it can be. Yeah.
So it just affects your brain, but you have no... You're just straight, go work that day?
That for people, from my understanding, one of the potential applications are people who have schizophrenia. This is actually supposed to help quiet the brain down a little bit. But having the hallucinations and the psychedelia would not be good for them.
Oh yeah.
But this part, it still stimulates the brain. And you're like, neuroplasticity, right? Mm-hmm. There's certain chemicals that we're finding, and this is one of the things with mushroom research also, neuroplasticity, where your brain actually will grow, heal, adapt.
Yeah.
And these are some of the things that
with mushrooms.
And
it's like a new fresh coat of snow. And then the new things you think about afterwards kind of create like stronger.
A responsible way, because if you do that too quickly, those don't have context. They don't have time to work into your larger map of who you are and what your body is. If you keep making new things that don't necessarily go anywhere tangentially, that's not great either.
No.
That actually works against your language center. That works against your ability to have a relational thought, because you're like, okay, this isn't related to anything. So I think small doses, responsible use, oftentimes guided use is best if you're doing it for a specific medicinal purpose, I would argue. But I think there's a lot of excitement about that, what that means we might be able to do for our brain. It's like brain wellness and brain tune-ups.
We're just starting to look to that now.
And the idea of like having a permanent adaptation to something that we have traditionally called chronic mental illness. Something where it's like some of the stories I've read about soldiers dealing with PTSD who go through MDMA therapy.
Yeah.
And they're like, I was prescribed 3 sessions. I did 2, and I already knew I didn't.
You did?
No.
This
is the story.
Yeah.
And he was like, because he was dealing with a lot of survivor's guilt. A lot of his platoon died. A lot of his friends died. He lived. And just this, like, what does that mean? And I feel guilty for being here because love, respect. And having this aha moment of guided MDMA where he's like, they wouldn't want me to be here and be sad. They would want me to live. They would want me to enjoy life. They loved me. They wouldn't want me to be here in agony.
Yeah, it can shift you out into a different perspective temporarily, and then maybe.
And especially in guided, safe settings, I'm of the belief that you can do really good work there.
There's a lot to explore.
I think it's not for everyone necessarily, but I think it is also for some people who are stuck in I don't know how to shift this perception, and maybe the best option I have right now is taking a pharmaceutical drug every day for the rest of my life, but I really would prefer not to, and it has side effects, and those are cumulative. And instead being like, well, what if something could actually change your perspective?
Yeah.
Change how you see at its core situation.
But they don't want that,
Well,
the big
and
brother.
I think that's being debated, because also I think there's a coming around to you can monetize that too. And that's why.
And that's what they're thinking about, probably, the government.
I would say this. Psychedelic science, which is going on right now in Denver, right?
Yes.
Especially if I'm going to do a comparison between a cannabis event, and obviously these are apples to oranges. There's a far larger pharmaceutical presence at psychedelic science.
Yeah.
And that is what that industry is shaping towards.
Yeah.
Whereas cannabis and everything looks more
counterculture.
It's going to be agriculture, or it's going to be in a blending of beer or alcohol and cigarettes. And that's what it's going to look like. Even though this has medicinal value.
Yeah.
Right? This one is already having hedge fund investors look at patents. This is now like, that's the fun time wacky weed thing.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, we're living at a really interesting time right now.
24-year-old me would not have thought we were doing this. I'd be like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
I know. Crazy. Well, man,
thanks.
I want to thank you for coming down. It's nice to see you again. We're going to hang out. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Shout out to our sponsors, Puffco.
Thanks,
and
Puffco.
WNC CBD. Check them out.
Woo, woo, woo. And for this tasty.
Yeah, how'd you feel after that?
I mean, I'm starting to feel.
For someone who doesn't drink and going to like a party now, like bringing one of these, it kind of does relax you.
There is a number of brands in Oregon, and I have started shifting over, and some of them have 2 milligram.
Yeah.
And being able to drink 3 or 4 of these at a social event, I'm loving it.
I know. I think this is a whole new huge market, dude. The NA kind of socializing drink market.
From what the industry, so long as if the federal government doesn't just outright ban all these things, this is one of the biggest areas for market share. And big enough now that alcohol industry and alcohol distribution is like, we should probably
get in on that somehow.
Probably have the maybe control of that.
I'm sure they see it in sales, dude. Because like 20 years ago, when we were 20 or whatever, we were drinking so much, and it seems like the 20-year-olds this like in this age, aren't drinking as much.
Agreed.
It's good.
And from one statement a client told me, especially through southern states, businesses like Liquor Barn and alcohol retailers, kind of that nature, have now at least one shelf about this big with product diversity for intoxicating hemp beverages.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, because there is that much of a demand.
And you buy that at a liquor store?
Yeah.
So, okay.
And not a dispensary.
Yeah.
That is the confusing part where they're like, well, it's not high
but
THC.
You can get this to your door in 50
that's it.
states.
So a lot of the hemp beverages can be, as of right now, shipped to some states federally legally. Some states. There is an immense amount of confusion looking at what states are what right now.
Yeah.
But it can be done. And that I use the comparison for Oregon. The ones I buy in the liquor store, 2 milligrams to at most 10. And then if I buy it at the dispensary for one soda, 100 milligrams.
Yeah, you're getting rocked.
You
have one of those or half of one of those at a party.
I'm a sleepy time guy.
Yeah. So that's why I like these, because they're like, they're 5 mil and they're full of electrolytes.
Hey, I love.
And they got CBG. Hell yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for coming in, dude. Thank you guys. Yeah.
Thank you for having me on. Maybe I'll be back someday.
Okay. Oh yeah, anytime you're in town. We'll catch up on the new laws. I'm sure they'll change by next time.
They'll be different.
Yeah,
Seriously,
hopefully they're moving in the right direction
by
too.
the end of this year, we're already going to see, I mean, for however it'll shake out, there's going to be some massive changes. Because like if Texas certifies this and says, it's out, that is going to be such a big step back in the entire industry. And other southern states are going to follow that really quick. But if he says, no, this is an industry I think we should have around, maybe we just need to regulate it better. That is gangbusters. The hemp industry just got the certification it needed from one of the biggest population states that it has a safe market to develop. And then I think other southern states.
It should be, because it's a great alternative to alcohol. So I'm rooting for it. And, I don't know who you can write your local congressman or
there you go.
Whatever. Yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, awesome. Great, man. Good one.
All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Robertson Stash Podcast, brought to you by WNC CBD. If you want to support us, please hit the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We want to hear from you. So if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to reach out. Hit the website, hit the link. We'll see you next time.